At 11:47 on the third night after graduation, Mara Ellison used a brass key to break into the theater she had inherited that morning. It was not legally breaking in, probably. The key worked, and her name was on the dead owner's papers. Still, the Vale Theater had red warning notices on its doors, plywood over 2 lobby windows, and a strip of yellow tape that slapped the brick whenever the wind blew. Mara stood in the alley with everything she owned locked in her car behind her. Her graduation tassel hung from the rearview mirror. Her clothes were stuffed into 6 black trash bags. She had $87, a dying phone, and no place she was allowed to sleep. The stage door groaned open. Somewhere inside, a man said, "Hold it, I heard something." A white bulb glowed beyond the darkness. Mara followed it through a corridor that smelled of damp plaster, dust, and something sweetly rotten. When she reached the stage, 7 strangers were standing beneath a single work light. An older man lowered a broom. A woman in blue hospital scrubs looked at Mara's wrinkled dress, then at the backpack clutched to her chest. "You're Lydia's girl," she said. Mara tightened her grip on the key. "You knew I was coming?" "No," the woman said. "We promised we'd be here if you ever did." 3 nights earlier, Denise Ellison had hugged Mara for exactly as long as it took a photographer to capture the moment. "Beautiful," the photographer said, checking his screen. Now one with the whole family. Whole family meant Denise and Grant. Grant stepped in, wearing sunglasses that reflected Mara back at herself in 2 tiny curved pieces. At 26, he had developed the habit of placing a hand on people's shoulders during pictures, as if granting them access to his life. "Degree girl," he said, squeezing too hard. "Real estate boy, real estate man. You still have a skateboard in the garage. That's an investment." "In what?" "My knees." The photographer laughed. Denise did not. She adjusted Mara's blue dress at the waist with 2 quick tugs. "That line was smoother this morning," she murmured. "I've been sitting in a plastic gown for 3 hours. And now we're taking pictures." Mara faced the camera and smiled. Across the university lawn, families crowded under maple trees and white tents. Someone had brought balloons shaped like champagne bottles. A brass quartet played near the library, though the sound kept getting swallowed by cheers. Graduates held flowers, framed diplomas, restaurant reservations. Mara held an empty cardboard cover because the actual diploma would arrive by mail in 6 to 8 weeks. Her father had called graduation the expensive receipt. He had promised to sit in the front row and whistle loudly enough to embarrass her. That was before the headaches, before the scans, before every promise in the house became smaller and more careful. Mara looked toward the rows of folding chairs already being stacked by campus workers. For half a second, she pictured him standing there in his gray sport coat, lifting both hands as if she had won something for him. Denise followed her gaze. "Your father would be proud." It was the sentence people used when they wanted grief to behave. "Yeah," Mara said. "I think so." "You think so?" Denise's expression sharpened. "Of course he would." Grant lowered his phone. "Can we get food? I skipped lunch for this." They had dinner at a steakhouse Denise loved because the waiters scraped crumbs from the table between courses. Grant ordered bourbon. Denise complained that her salmon was dry and ate all of it. Mara's phone buzzed twice with congratulations from classmates, then once with a reminder about a Monday job interview. Junior accounting associate, starting salary. Enough to stop checking the price of everything twice. She had spent the week preparing answers about teamwork, conflict resolution, and her 5-year goals. She had bought the blue dress for the interview, as well as graduation, because 2 occasions were the only way she could justify it. Denise set down her wine glass. "What time are you leaving tomorrow?" Mara thought she had missed the beginning of a conversation. "Leaving for where?" "Wherever you're staying." Grant became interested in the butter dish. Mara looked between them. "I'm staying at home." Denise's mouth made a small, patient line. "We talked about this. We talked about me staying until I graduated. Right? I graduated 4 hours ago." "Yes." "Congratulations again." The waiter appeared and asked whether anyone wanted dessert. Denise ordered coffee. Grant asked for the chocolate cake to go. Mara waited until the waiter left. "I have an interview Monday. That's wonderful. And I don't have an apartment yet. That's something you should have planned for." Mara laughed once because her body had mistaken the sentence for a joke. "I've been paying you rent, a contribution toward groceries, $500 a month, which doesn't come close to what it costs to maintain that house." The house had no mortgage. Mara knew because her father had celebrated the final payment by opening a bottle of champagne in the kitchen and spraying half of it onto the ceiling. A pale stain still hovered over the breakfast table. Grant buttered another roll. My business needs the room. Your business is 2 ring lights and a laptop. I meet clients. In your bedroom? Home office? Denise corrected. Mara looked at her. You're serious. I assumed you understood the arrangement. I understood that you weren't going to throw me out while I was in school. And I didn't. The coffee arrived. Denise thanked the waiter warmly, then waited until he walked away. You're an adult now, Mara. You have a degree. At some point, support becomes enabling. Mara stared at the tiny silver pitcher of cream. Her father used to pour all of it into his coffee, making Denise say, Every drop? Really, Tom? Did Dad know about this arrangement? Denise's fingers stopped on the sugar packet. He left me responsible for the household, she said. That isn't what I asked. Grant exhaled through his nose. Don't do this here. Do what? Turn graduation dinner into a trial. Mara pushed back from the table. The carpet swallowed the chair's movement, which made her feel even more ridiculous. She wanted something to scrape. She wanted every table to turn and see. Instead, she picked up her cardboard diploma cover. Thank you for dinner. Denise looked offended. But Mara was already walking toward the front doors, past the dessert case, and the hostess wishing departing strangers a lovely evening. She took the bus back to Denise's house because Grant said the trunk of his SUV was full. It took 50 minutes and required 1 transfer beside a gas station. By the time Mara reached the subdivision, the sky was bruised purple and her feet were blistered inside the only heels she owned. The porch light was off. Her key went into the lock but would not turn. For one dizzy moment, she thought she had the wrong key. She tried again, lifting the handle the way her father used to. The dead bolt held. Then she saw the bags. 6 black trash bags were lined beside the garage, along with her backpack, her laptop case, and the frame photograph from her father's hospital room. Whoever packed it had wrapped the frame in one of Mara's college sweatshirts. A yellow sticky note was pressed to the top bag. Grant cleared room in the sedan. Key is under mat. That was all. Mara stood in the driveway with the empty diploma cover under one arm. Through the living room window, the television flashed blue against the walls. Denise crossed the room, carrying her coffee cup. She did not look outside. Mara could have rung the bell. She could have held her finger on it until a neighbor came out. She could have thrown the little silver graduation balloon Grant bought into the hydrangeas and screamed every true thing she knew about them. Instead, she carried the bags to the sedan 2 at a time. The key was under the mat. The car had belonged to her father before the illness made it dangerous for him to drive. The air conditioner worked only on the highest setting, and the passenger window slid down half an inch whenever Mara hit a pothole. When she turned the ignition, his radio station came on. She drove away before Denise could come outside and make the moment look mutual. The first night, Mara parked behind a 24-hour grocery store. She bought a bottle of water and a toothbrush, so the receipt would make her feel entitled to the restroom. At 2 in the morning, a cart collector tapped on the glass and told her the manager did not allow overnight parking. The second place had brighter lights and a security camera aimed directly at her car. Mara told herself that was safer. She pushed the seat back, tucked her graduation gown over her legs, and used her backpack as a pillow. At 6:15, her phone alarm rang for work. Mara worked weekend mornings at a coffee shop near campus. She washed her face in the employee restroom, twisted her hair into a bun, and spent 7 hours handing breakfast sandwiches to people who complained when their eggs were not centered. Her coworker Tasha noticed the dress hanging from the hook in the back room. "You living here now?" Tasha asked, waiting for my apartment to be ready. "What apartment?" "The one I'm definitely getting." Tasha leaned against the sink. At 40, she had 3 facial expressions: amused, exhausted, and deeply unconvinced. This was the third. "You need my couch?" "No, but thank you. It sinks in the middle." Really selling it. My couch has nothing to prove. Mara almost said yes. Then she pictured herself arriving with 6 trash bags and waking whenever Tasha's husband left for his bakery shift. She pictured the careful politeness of people whose kindness had been made inconvenient. "I'm fine," she said. Tasha held her gaze, then opened her locker and handed Mara a wrapped blueberry muffin. "You forgot to eat this. I didn't buy it. Then it's incredible that you forgot." On Sunday afternoon, while Mara was changing for a shower at the university gym, her phone rang from an unknown number. A woman introduced herself as Lydia Vale's estate attorney. Mara sat on the wooden bench with one shoe in her hand. "I think you have the wrong person. Are you Thomas Ellison's daughter?" The locker room seemed to tilt quietly around her. "Yes. I'm sorry to tell you that your Aunt Lydia passed away Thursday evening." Mara saw red velvet curtains and dust swimming through a beam of light. Lydia crouching in an aisle, holding out a paper cup of orange soda. Lydia laughing too loudly at something Mara's father had said. Then nothing. Years of nothing. "I didn't know she was sick. She asked that you be contacted after her death." "Why?" There was a pause softened by professional practice. "You're named in her will." Denise and Grant were already in the attorney's waiting room when Mara arrived Monday morning. Grant stood when she entered. "There she is." Mara looked at Denise. "How did you know?" "Lydia sent notice to the family." The family. Denise glanced at Mara's blue dress. "You wore that Saturday. I own detergent." The attorney's office smelled of lemon furniture polish. On the wall, a wooden clock ticked with theatrical volume. Mara sat in the chair farthest from Denise and kept her backpack on her lap. Lydia's estate was smaller than Grant had apparently imagined. Her jewelry went to Denise. Her restored 1966 Mustang went to Grant, whose solemn expression cracked into a grin before the attorney finished reading the sentence. Then, the attorney looked at Mara. "To my niece, Mara Ellison, I leave the Vale Theater, including its contents, obligations, and all rights associated with the property." Silence settled. Grant blinked. "The whole building?" Mara heard only one word. "Obligations?" The attorney slid a folder toward her. Inside were photographs of a ruined lobby, utility notices, an insurance estimate, and a city letter with stabilization deadline printed across the top. Grant leaned over her shoulder. Then he laughed. Not cruelly at first. It simply escaped him. Denise touched his arm, but her mouth had tightened around the same impulse. Grant sat back. "Well," he said, still smiling, "Aunt Lydia always did have a sense of humor." That evening, with the folder on the passenger seat and her phone battery at 9%, Mara drove to the address printed beneath her name. The Vale's marquee had lost half its letters. Rain had streaked the old posters inside their glass cases until every face looked as if it had been crying. Mara circled to the alley, found the brass key in the envelope, and opened the stage door. Inside, someone was sweeping. The sweeping stopped. "Hello?" Mara called. A man's voice answered from beyond the corridor. "If that's Daryl, the bucket is already under it." "I'm not Daryl. That sounds like something Daryl would say." A woman shushed him. Mara moved toward the light, keeping one hand on the wall. The plaster felt cool and uneven beneath her fingertips. A row of framed production photographs appeared as her eyes adjusted. Men in powdered wigs, women in satin gowns. Lydia, at different ages, always near the edge of the picture, looking less like an actress than someone prepared to catch the scenery if it fell. The corridor opened beside the stage. 7 people had formed an uncertain half-circle beneath a bare white bulb on a stand. They looked nothing alike, except for the dust on their clothes. The woman in hospital scrubs stepped forward. She was tall, silver threaded through her dark braid, with tired eyes that missed very little. "You're Lydia's girl." Mara did not lower the key. "You knew I was coming?" "No." "We promised we'd be here if you ever did, Simone," a man said quietly. "What?" "That's what she told us. She also told us not to frighten her." Simone looked at the 7 strangers in an unlit theater. "That part may need work." The older man with the broom rested both hands on its handle. His sweater had leather patches on the elbows, and his white mustache curled upward as if amused independently of him. "Calvin Reed," he said. "Formerly Prospero, Tivier, and Mann at bus stop number 2. Twice," Simone added, typecasting. A broad man in paint-streaked work pants raised 2 fingers. "Owen Pike. I fix things." "Some things," said a lean black man seated on the edge of the stage. "I don't fix Malcolm because he enjoys being broken." "Malcolm Price," the seated man said. "I sing. I direct when no one can stop me." The introductions continued. Bernice Shaw, who wore red glasses on a beaded chain and had 3 straight pins tucked into the collar of her blouse. Tessa Bell, a restaurant manager with close-cropped blonde hair and the watchful stance of someone accustomed to breaking up fights near a bar. The 7th person stood near an electrical panel, half outside the work light. Eli Mercer. He was younger than the others, early 30s perhaps, in a faded black t-shirt and work boots. A coil of cable hung from one shoulder. He gave Mara a short nod but did not smile. Mara looked from him to Simone. "What are you doing in my building?" Calvin glanced upward, standing very carefully. "I'm serious." "So is he," Owen said. "There's a soft spot downstage left." Mara's head snapped toward the floor. "Not that soft? You're fine where you are?" "That isn't comforting. It wasn't meant to be untrue." Eli set down the cable. "We have keys. Lydia gave them to us. We came to check the roof after yesterday's rain and clear out some of her personal things." "What personal things?" "Her thermos, medicine from the office, clothes." Mara heard the last word differently from the others. "You knew she died?" Simone's face changed. "Yes." "How?" "We were with her," Bernice said. The red glasses slipped lower on her nose, but she did not push them up. Mara curled her fingers around the folder under her arm. The city letter pressed against the cardboard. "All of you?" "Not all at once," Simone said. She'd have complained about the noise. "What did she die of?" The question came out bluntly. No one flinched. "Pancreatic cancer," Simone said. "She was diagnosed 11 months ago." Mara waited for someone to add that Lydia had tried to call, that the attorney had made a mistake, that a message had gone astray. The silence did not offer her anything. Eli stepped away from the electrical panel. "Did the attorney tell you the lobby is restricted?" "She gave me a folder. You can't go through the front. Part of the ceiling came down years ago, and the remaining plaster isn't stable. Owen shored up the passage to the auditorium, but that doesn't make the lobby safe." "You shored it up?" Mara asked. Owen shrugged. "Somebody had to." "Were you paid?" The group exchanged glances. Mara looked at each of them. "Were any of you paid?" "Not recently," Calvin said. "How recently?" 2018. She opened the folder on an old prop table. Papers slid across the scratched surface. The utility notice landed upside down. A photograph of the lobby showed pale rubble spread over the carpet like dirty snow. The theater closed in 2018. "Yes," Calvin said. "So you've been working for free since then." "We haven't been working exactly," Tessa said. "What have you been doing exactly?" No one answered quickly enough. Mara's stomach tightened. "Are you living here?" Malcolm laughed. Simone cut him a look. "Sorry," he said. "No. Is anyone renting space? Storing anything? Running something out of the building?" "We meet," Bernice said. "For what?" "Rehearsal." Mara turned toward the empty seats. Row after row vanished into darkness. "You rehearse in a closed theater." "Thursday nights," Calvin said. "It's Monday. We've been coming more often since Lydia got sick." Mara stared at the white bulb on the stand. It cast long shadows across the stage, too weak to reach the balcony. "For 8 years?" "We missed Christmas once," Malcolm said. "Ice storm." "That's not an answer. It's the best answer we've got." Mara picked up the city letter. She needed numbers, names, dates, anything that behaved the same way twice. "I don't know what Lydia told you, but I can't promise anything. I didn't even know I was inheriting this place until this morning." "We know," Simone said. "No, you don't. There are overdue bills. There's an insurance payment due in 12 days. The city says the exterior has to be stabilized by September, and I don't know what that means or what it costs." "Owen can tell you what it means," Bernice offered. "And I can tell you what it costs," Owen said. "Roughly." Mara looked at him. He rubbed the back of his neck. "You're not going to enjoy it. Then I'll sell." The words dropped between them. Calvin's grip shifted on the broom. Bernice removed her glasses and cleaned them with the hem of her blouse. Malcolm looked toward the seats as if an audience might object for him. Only Eli kept his face still. "That may be the sensible choice," he said. Simone turned. "Eli." "What?" "She has owned the place for 6 hours." 7, Mara said before she could stop herself. Eli checked his watch. "Almost 8. Something about his calm annoyed her more than the others' disappointment. "You think I should sell it?" "I think you should see it before you decide. You just told me I can't go in the lobby." "The lobby isn't the theater." He picked up a flashlight from the floor and held it out to her. Mara hesitated, then took it. The beam was brighter than she expected. Dust leaped into view. Eli led them across the stage. The others followed until Mara stopped and turned. "Are all 7 of you coming?" "We love a tour," Calvin said. You've been here every week for 8 years. We love other people taking a tour. Simone took Calvin by the sleeve. Give her some air. The group reluctantly dispersed. Owen returned to his bucket. Bernice gathered 2 garment bags from a chair. Malcolm and Tessa carried a wooden trunk toward the wings. Calvin resumed sweeping the same patch of floor with great concentration. Eli waited beside a narrow staircase. You don't have to show me anything, Mara said. I know. Then why are you? Because the attorney's photographs were taken by someone who thought theater seats were called chairs. Mara followed him. He showed her the backstage corridor first. Dressing room doors bore tarnished brass stars and names written in layers of tape. A cracked mirror was surrounded by round bulbs, only 3 of which worked. Powder and old perfume lingered beneath the damp smell. The costume room was packed so tightly Mara had to turn sideways between the racks. Uniforms, ball gowns, fur coats, and sequined jackets crowded under plastic covers. Handwritten tags hung from their sleeves. Are these worth anything? She asked. To whom? That's not how worth works. In here it is. She aimed the flashlight at him. That sounded rehearsed. Lydia said it a lot. They climbed another staircase to the 2nd floor. The landing opened into a narrow hall with several small rooms. Each held a cot or narrow bed, mismatched furniture, and curtains sewn from old stage fabric. What are these? Dressing rooms, originally. They look like bedrooms. Eli reached into the nearest room and turned a lamp switch. Nothing happened. Power's off in this section. That wasn't my question. No. She waited. He looked down the hall. Lydia let people stay here sometimes. What people? Company members between apartments, touring performers, friends having a bad month. How long did they stay? Depends how bad the month was. Mara shone the flashlight into the nearest room. A folded blanket rested at the foot of the cot. On the dresser sat an empty water glass and a ceramic bowl painted with blue flowers. The room looked prepared, not abandoned. Is someone staying here now? No. Then why is there bedding? Lydia liked rooms ready. The answer landed too near the 6 trash bags in Mara's sedan. She stepped back into the hall. I'm not staying here. Eli's eyebrows lifted slightly. I didn't ask you to. You were about to. I was about to tell you the plumbing works in 1 bathroom. Heat moved up Mara's neck. I have a place. All right. My apartment isn't ready. All right. The building could be unsafe. This part is structurally sound. Owen checked after the lobby collapse. But it isn't legally approved for residential use. You always give this many answers to questions no one asked, only when they're arguing with me. Mara walked past him toward the staircase. At the bottom, she misjudged the final step and caught herself on the banister. Eli pretended not to notice. On stage, Simone was packing medical supplies into a canvas bag. We're heading out. Good, Mara said, more sharply than she intended. I need to lock up. Simone studied her. Do you know how? It's a door. It's 6 doors. The alley one has to be lifted while you turn the deadbolt. The loading door looks locked when it isn't. And the fire exit alarm stopped working during the Obama administration. Owen raised his head. I fixed that. You fixed the light. The alarm still doesn't sound. It sounds. It sighs. Calvin demonstrated a weak, mournful wheeze. Despite herself, Mara nearly smiled. Simone took a ring of keys from her pocket and set it beside the folder. Those are Lydia's master keys. Yours should work on the main doors, but not the storage cages or office. Why do you have them? Because Lydia gave them to me. She gave everyone things, apparently. Simone absorbed that without defending herself. We'll come back Thursday, she said. No. Calvin stopped sweeping. Mara crossed her arms. I need time to figure out what I'm doing. Until then, no rehearsals, no meetings, no fixing things I didn't ask you to fix. What about leaks? Owen asked. Call me. You don't have my number. I'll give it to you. Your phone is dead, Eli said. Everyone looked at the phone protruding from Mara's backpack. Its blank screen reflected the work light. It's not dead. Eli walked to the edge of the stage, picked up a long orange extension cord, and plugged it into a live outlet. There's a charger in Lydia's office, he said. 2nd drawer. I'm leaving. All right. They filed out slowly. Calvin was last, carrying the broom as if it belonged to him. At the stage door, he turned. Lydia never said you had to keep the theater. Mara waited. She only said we shouldn't let you face it alone. Then he left. Mara lifted the door as Simone had shown her and turned the deadbolt. One lock. She checked the loading door, the fire exit, the hallway door, and 3 others she was not convinced led outside. By the time she returned to the stage, the theater was silent. Her phone charged in Lydia's office while she sat in the old desk chair and studied the bills. At 11:30, she carried her backpack upstairs. The cot creaked when she lay down. She kept her shoes on. Below her, the white work light burned alone on the stage. The pipes woke before Mara did. They knocked behind the wall in a slow, uneven rhythm, then released a groan that seemed to travel the length of the building. Mara sat up too quickly and struck her knee on the edge of the cot. For a moment, she did not know where she was, the red curtain serving as a window shade, the ceramic bowl on the dresser, her backpack on the floor, her shoes still on her feet. The theater? She checked her phone. 6% battery, 6:42 in the morning, 3 messages. One was from Tasha asking if her imaginary apartment had imaginary running water. One was an automated reminder to rate the attorney's office. The third was from Grant. Call me about the property. I can help. Mara deleted that one. She had slept less than 4 hours. Every settling noise had sounded like a roof preparing to land on her. Once she had gone downstairs with the flashlight and found the white work light still glowing on the empty stage. She had searched for a switch, failed, and unplugged it. It was burning again now. Mara stood at the top of the stairs, staring down at it. Hello? No answer. She descended slowly. The cord she remembered unplugging lay across the floor, connected to the outlet. She crouched beside it. Maybe she had only intended to unplug it. Maybe exhaustion had folded thought and action together. A metallic crash came from the alley. Mara ran toward the stage door. She fought with the deadbolt, forgetting to lift the handle, then shoved the door open into bright morning sunlight. A tow truck had her sedan raised by its rear wheels. Hey! The driver glanced over from the control panel. He wore mirrored sunglasses and an orange vest over a t-shirt that said, "Real Men Fish." That's my car. Shouldn't be parked here. This is my building. This is a fire lane. She looked down. Beneath the sedan, faded red letters ran along the curb. Fire lane, no parking. One trash bag was visible through the passenger window, pressed against the glass. I didn't see it last night. The driver pulled a lever. Her car lifted another inch. I'll move it. Hooked already, so unhook it. Drop fee is $125. I don't have $125. Then pickup is $328 after 10. Mara's mouth went dry. It costs more after you take it? That's generally the business model. A second man emerged from the far end of the alley, carrying 2 paper cups. Eli stopped when he saw the sedan. Mara felt exposed before he even looked through the windows. What happened? He asked. Nothing. The tow driver snorted. Eli took in the red curb, the raised car, and Mara standing in the stage doorway with one side of her hair flattened against her head. Fire lane? I was moving it. You were asleep. I was going to move it. The driver walked toward the cab. Mara stepped off the curb. Wait. Eli put down the coffee cups. How much to drop it? No. The driver turned. $125. I said no. Eli reached for his wallet. Mara caught his wrist. It was an instinctive, humiliating thing to do. His skin was warm beneath her cold fingers. They both looked at her hand until she released him. You are not paying for my car. Then he's taking it. I understand the sequence. The driver opened his door. Eli's gaze moved to the sedan. The graduation gown lay across the driver's seat. Her father's framed photograph was wedged between 2 bags in the back. Mara could see the moment the arrangement stopped looking temporary to him. Where's your apartment? He asked. The flooring's delayed. That must be some flooring. Eli, is there an apartment? The tow truck started with a diesel shudder. Mara stood rigid while it pulled away. The sedan bumped once as it left the alley, her tassel swinging wildly in the windshield. She waited until the truck turned the corner. Then she picked up one of the coffee cups from the pavement and held it out to Eli. You dropped this. He accepted it. Thanks. What are you doing here? She asked. I left my tool bag. You had 1 bag. I left the other one. I told everyone not to come back. I'm not everyone. The answer was so dry, it took her a second to realize it was a joke. She folded her arms. You saw the car? I did. And you saw my things. Yes. This does not become a group conversation. No, I'm serious. So am I. He picked up the second coffee and offered it to her. Mara looked at the lid. What is it? Coffee. What kind? Hot. She took it. The theater had a bathroom behind the downstairs dressing rooms. Eli showed her which valve to turn before using the shower, and which one to turn off afterward unless she wanted a steady drip to become a steady flood. The water came out brown for 4 seconds, then clear. Hot water? Mara asked. Depends how strong your faith is. Mine's not great, then lukewarm. He left his unopened coffee on the sink ledge and walked away without mentioning the towel folded over one arm. It was clean, faded green, and rough enough to remove a layer of skin. Mara pressed it to her face after the shower and breathed in laundry detergent. When she came out wearing yesterday's dress, Eli was kneeling near the stage electrical panel with his tool bag open. You're still here. So are you. I own it. He glanced around. That argument is going to get a workout. Mara's phone rang from Lydia's office. The staffing manager from her interview introduced herself again, as if Mara might have forgotten sitting across from her the previous afternoon, while a photograph of a ruined lobby waited inside her backpack. We enjoyed meeting you, the woman said. We'd like to invite you to a second interview Thursday at 10. That's great. Thank you. There will be 2 members of the finance team this time. Business professional again. Mara looked down at the blue dress. Of course. When she ended the call, Eli was standing in the office doorway. Good news? None of your business. I'll congratulate you quietly. A knock sounded at the stage door. Your secret tool bag? Tell anyone where you were going? No. The knock came again, followed by Simone's voice. I know you're in there, Eli. Your truck is outside. Mara closed her eyes. Simone entered carrying a canvas tote. Owen came behind her with a toolbox, and Calvin followed, holding a cardboard tray of coffees. What is this? Mara asked. Breakfast, Calvin said. I don't mean the food. Towels, Simone said, setting down her tote. Soap, a clean sweatshirt. I guessed your size and erred toward comfort. Mara looked at Eli. He shook his head. I didn't call them. The tow driver did, Owen said. Everyone turned toward him. My cousin runs dispatch. Of course he does, Mara said. He said a blue sedan was picked up from the Vale with a graduation gown in the front. I told Simone. Who told Calvin? Calvin said. I have no defense. Simone unpacked the tote without apology. 2 towels, travel-sized toiletries, a sweatshirt, leggings, and a package of socks appeared on Lydia's desk. I'm not taking those. Fine, they can sit there. I mean it. So do socks. Owen nodded toward the upstairs hall. Office doors still stick? What office door? The one across from the cot room. I slept in the cot room. Calvin suddenly became fascinated by his coffee. Mara heard how the sentence sounded only after it was out. She set her cup down. One night, because it was late. No one spoke. I have somewhere else to go. Simone leaned against Lydia's desk. Good. Her refusal to challenge the lie made it worse. Owen lifted his toolbox. I'll fix the lock upstairs. 20 minutes. I didn't ask you to. No. Then why are you doing it? Because someone walked in here 6 years ago while Bernice was changing. He was looking for the pharmacy. How do you accidentally enter a closed theater looking for a pharmacy? He was very committed to being wrong. Mara pinched the bridge of her nose. I cannot pay you. I didn't ask you to. Why does everyone in this building answer questions like that? Repertory style, Calvin said. The stage door opened again. Grant entered wearing a navy jacket, pressed shirt, and the expression of a man arriving at an appointment he had not made. He carried a leather folder under one arm. His gaze landed on Mara's bare feet. I called you. My phone was occupied. Doing what? Phone things. He looked around at the others. Are these tenants? Calvin glanced at Simone. Do I look like a tenant? You look like a professor. Retired mail carrier. Close, Grant said. Mara stepped between them. Why are you here? To help, like I said. You sent 4 words. I was driving. You're always driving when you don't want a record. Grant's jaw tightened, then relaxed. He had their father's talent for letting irritation pass through his face like a shadow before company noticed. I heard your car got towed. Mara looked toward Owen. My cousin didn't call him, Owen said. Grant held up both hands. Denise drove by your apartment last night. What apartment? That's my point. Simone stopped unpacking. Mara lowered her voice. Outside. No need? Grant set the leather folder on Lydia's desk. This concerns the property. It concerns my property. Exactly. You're dealing with insurance, code requirements, taxes, utilities, and whatever these people are. Actors, Malcolm said from the corridor. Mara turned. How many of you are here? Just me, Malcolm said, and Tessa's parking. Grant blinked slowly. He opened the folder. I'll give you $10,000 and take over every obligation attached to the building. The room changed. $10,000 became a hotel room, a security deposit, her sedan behind a chain-link fence, a new interview dress, months in which every small disaster would not be fatal. Grant pushed a single-page offer toward her. It's not worth anything in this condition, he said. The land might be useful eventually, but demolition alone could eat the value. I'm giving you an exit. Mara read the number twice. Behind her, no one moved. Why would you give me $10,000 for something worthless? Because you're family. She looked up. Grant smiled gently. It was the smile he used in property videos before saying the phrase motivated seller. Mara closed the folder. I need time. The city deadline doesn't. Neither does this offer. Leave it. I can have the transfer handled this week. I said leave it. Grant studied her, then glanced at the blankets and toiletries on Lydia's desk. Don't confuse people needing somewhere to gather with this place being worth saving. He walked out past Malcolm and Tessa, who had indeed just arrived. Mara waited for someone to defend the theater. No one did. She looked down at the offer. 3 days, she said. I'm finding out exactly what this building is before I sell it. Eli picked up his coffee. That sounds sensible too. Mara turned the folder so the offer faced the group. If anyone says the building is priceless, I'm asking them to leave. Calvin raised one hand. May I say irreplaceable? No. Significant? No adjectives. He lowered his hand. Mara found a legal pad in Lydia's desk and wrote 3 headings. Keep, sell, unknown. Under unknown, she added nearly everything. What do you need? Simone asked. Facts. Current insurance cost, utility balances, tax status, repair estimates, anything owed to anyone in this room, anything owed to anyone outside this room, and a complete list of what's in the building. That last one could take a month, Bernice said from the doorway. Then start with anything worth more than $500. Bernice looked wounded. Financially, Mara pointed her pen at Calvin. She used an adjective. I think it was an adverb, Malcolm said. That's worse. Owen dragged a folding chair beside the desk and sat backward on it. The city's exterior order is mostly about the cornice over the sidewalk. Some masonry has shifted, and the old brackets under the marquee are pulling loose. How much for a permanent repair? 18 to 24,000, assuming we don't find more damage when the lift goes up. Mara wrote the number carefully, though her fingers had gone cold. And the lobby? Different problem. How different? Roof stopped the water. Ceiling didn't survive what came before. Plaster, electrical, flooring, permits. Could do it modestly for 40, maybe 45. 45,000? If volunteers handle finish work. What if volunteers don't? Owen gave her the unhappy look he had promised. Mara added the estimate beneath the first. Anything else? The boiler is older than Calvin. It is not, Calvin called. Runs about as well. I heard that too. The balcony needs a railing upgrade. 2 exterior doors should be replaced. Main electrical is serviceable, but the dimmer system belongs in a museum. Eli leaned against the office doorframe. The dimmers are fine. You hit number 6 with a mallet. It responds to clarity. Mara stopped writing. Is anything in this building not one bad afternoon away from collapse? The stage, Owen said. Eli nodded. Stage is solid. The fly system? Inspected before closure. I checked the lines. The rigging is good, Owen agreed. Backstage structure too. Dressing rooms need cosmetic work. Upstairs, plumbing is ugly but functional. Ugly but functional, Mara repeated. Put that on the marquee, Calvin said. The others smiled. Mara did not, though she wrote it in the margin. The building tour took nearly 2 hours. Owen tapped walls, opened panels, and spoke about joists as if introducing relatives. Eli carried a flashlight and corrected him twice. They argued over whether a scorch mark near the electrical room was 20 or 21 years old. Tessa took photographs. Bernice followed with a notebook titled Veil Inventory, though most of her entries seemed to be clothing descriptions. Mara saw the auditorium in full light for the first time. It was smaller than memory had made it. 400 red seats curved toward the stage, their fabric faded unevenly. A narrow balcony overhung the rear rows. Gold paint peeled from the decorative boxes, and one painted cherub had lost most of its face to water damage. Still, when Eli switched on 3 stage lights, the room altered. The curtains deepened to wine red. Dust became glitter in the beams. The empty seats seemed less abandoned than expectant. Mara disliked how quickly the effect worked on her. "How much are the lights worth?" she asked. Eli shut one off. "Depends which ones. All of them." "You planning to sell them?" "I'm planning to know what I own. Some fixtures are obsolete. Some are newer. Control board might bring 1,500 used. List them." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You said no adjectives," he said. "That isn't an adjective." "No, it's an order." She faced him. "Do you have a problem taking orders from the owner? I have a problem stripping a working stage to make a doomed building slightly easier to abandon." The auditorium went still behind them. Mara lowered her voice. $10,000 is not slight to me. "I know. No, you saw some trash bags through a car window. You don't know anything." "You're right." His quick agreement stole the next sentence from her. Owen cleared his throat. "There's more downstairs." The basement contained a furnace room, a props cage, 2 storage rooms, and a sink full of paintbrushes hardened into one solid bouquet. Mara photographed tools, lumber, restaurant-style beverage dispensers, and boxes of programs. A painted moon leaned against the wall beside 6 wooden gravestones. "Do people buy these?" she asked. "People with very specific yards," Tessa said. In the wardrobe room, Bernice stood protectively in front of the racks. "You may inventory," she told Mara, "but if you start pricing individual pieces without asking me what they are, I will become unpleasant." "Have you been pleasant so far?" "Extremely." Mara pulled the plastic cover from a green velvet coat. Bernice gasped. "Clean hands. My hands are clean, not costume clean." "Is that a medical category?" "It should be." Mara let the cover fall back into place. "Fine. You make the list." Bernice's expression softened by a degree. "I already have one." "Then why did you bring a blank notebook?" "This is the revision." "Where's the original?" Bernice pointed upward. "Lydia's files." The office filing cabinets were packed so tightly the bottom drawer required Owen and Malcolm to pull together. Inside were production budgets, payroll records, royalty agreements, maintenance invoices, ticket reports, and ledgers with Lydia's compact handwriting marching across every page. Mara sat on the floor and began sorting by year. She forgot the others for a while. Numbers calmed when people did not. Even bad numbers admitted what they were. The theater had lost money in 5 of its final 6 operating years, but not in the way Grant implied. Ticket sales had been steady. Rentals covered basic staff costs. The trouble began with emergency roof repairs, followed by the lobby collapse and a long fight to keep insurance from tripling. Lydia had not ignored the building. She had paid roofers, engineers, electricians, and masons until the operating account dwindled into 3 figures. Mara found no hidden reserve, no investment account, no forgotten envelope of cash. She did find dozens of deposits after the theater closed. $75, $40, $120, $22.50. Each was marked Thursday Company. "What's this?" she asked. "Calvin stopped carrying boxes," Simone answered. "We contributed." "To what?" "Utilities. Insurance when we could. Materials." "Why are the amounts different?" "Because our lives are different," Tessa said. Mara flipped through 3 years of deposits. "This doesn't cover the full expenses." "No," Simone said. "Lydia paid the rest." "Yes." "From what income?" A silence opened. Bernice adjusted her glasses. "She sold her house." Mara looked up. "She moved into a small apartment near the hospital," Simone continued. "Most of the sale went to medical costs and the theater." "How much?" "We didn't know," Tessa said. "I did," Simone admitted, near the end. Mara pressed her palms to the open ledger. Lydia had spent everything preserving a building she could not reopen, then left it to someone she had not spoken to in years. "That doesn't make sense." "No," Eli said. "It doesn't." He did not sound reverent. He sounded angry. Mara studied him. "You thought she should sell. I thought she should stop spending money she needed. Did you tell her?" "Repeatedly. And?" "She told me to take my practical shoes and get out of her office." Calvin nodded. "Classic Lydia." Mara closed the ledger. I need to get my car. I'll drive you, Simone said. I can manage. How? Mara looked for an answer in the papers. Simone picked up her keys. You can refuse the towels. You can refuse the socks. You cannot walk 14 miles to an impound yard because accepting a ride damages your personal mythology. My mythology is fine. It looks tired. The impound office stood behind a chain-link fence beside an auto body shop. A television mounted in one corner played a courtroom show with the sound off. The clerk asked for Mara's license, registration, proof of insurance, and $328. Mara slid her only credit card beneath the glass. The clerk ran it once, then again. Declined. Mara felt Simone beside her, carefully not moving. Try 200 on the card, Mara said. She counted the cash in her wallet. And I'll pay the rest cash. You'll be short 41. Mara checked every pocket as if money might have developed there. Simone placed 2 20s and a 1 beneath the glass. I'll pay you Friday, Mara said. All right, I mean it, I know. The charge went through for 200. Mara surrendered all but $1 of her cash. Outside, the sedan sat between a damaged pickup and a white van. The trash bags in the back seat were exactly as she had left them. Simone waited near her own car. She did not offer to help unload because there was nowhere to unload them. She did not look away either. The sweatshirt is yours, she said. Not alone. Mara unlocked the sedan. Why? Because it doesn't fit me. That isn't why. No. Simone leaned against her car. But it's the answer that lets you take it. Mara drove directly to the coffee shop and asked Tasha if she could pick up extra hours. Tasha poured steamed milk into a paper cup without looking at her. Your apartment have a mail slot? Not yet. Your apartment have walls? Several. Do those walls belong to a condemned theater? Mara stared. Tasha pushed the cup toward her. You have dust in your hair and a local news face. I made an educated guess. By late afternoon, Mara was back in Lydia's office wearing Simone's sweatshirt and entering 8 years of theater expenses into a spreadsheet. Someone had oiled the upstairs lock. Someone else had stocked the bathroom with toilet paper. The stage remained empty, as she had ordered. She opened another ledger to a section labeled Rooms. Names filled the pages, arrival dates, departure dates, notes about jobs, deposits, keys returned. Some stayed 2 nights, some stayed months. Beside most names, Lydia had written settled, no balance, or paid through work. Halfway down a page dated 28 years earlier, Mara found her father, Thomas Ellison. Room 3, 6 months, settled through work, no balance owed. Mara touched the line with one finger. Above her, in the hall, room 3 waited with its folded blanket and blue-flowered bowl. Your father hated that room. Calvin's voice came from the office doorway. Mara turned so quickly the ledger slid off her lap. It struck the floor open, pages folding beneath its weight. Calvin bent to pick it up. Don't. He stopped. Mara lifted it herself and smoothed the paper against her knee. Were you standing there watching me read? I came to bring you this. He held out a paper bag. I'm not hungry. It's a turkey sandwich. That doesn't change my answer. It has mustard. Calvin. He set the bag on the desk. I wasn't watching. You said Thomas. I didn't say anything. You did, quietly. Mara looked again at her father's name. Lydia's handwriting crossed both pages without hesitation. The letters pressed so firmly the pen had left impressions in the paper. Why did he hate the room? Pipe behind the wall knocked all night. He stayed 6 months. He hated being broke more. Calvin took the other folding chair but waited until Mara gave a small nod before sitting. He had known her father at 20. The thought rearranged his face. Beneath the white mustache and loose skin was someone who had once shared a stage with Thomas Ellison, perhaps eaten bad sandwiches with him, heard him laugh before grief and marriage, and years made him into Mara's version. How did he end up here? Calvin rubbed one thumb across the broom callus in his palm. Your grandparents asked him to leave. Why? Your father could be talented in the way that makes a young man believe ordinary rules are for people with smaller destinies. That sounds like a nice way to say he was unemployed. He was very employed. Briefly, a hardware store, a radio station, a landscaping crew, a restaurant where he took a principled stand against wearing the uniform. What was the uniform? A green apron. Mara's mouth almost moved. He and Lydia fought constantly, Calvin continued. She was 11 years older and had already been running this place for a few years. She thought he wasted every chance he got. He thought she mistook managing people for loving them. Did she? Yes. The answer surprised her. Calvin leaned back. Lydia could help you so aggressively it felt like being mugged. She gave Tom room 3, put him to work in concessions, and told him he'd start community college in the fall. He told me he paid for school himself. He did mostly. Lydia got him through the first semester. He worked after that. What work? Everything. Tickets, repairs, books. He discovered he was good with numbers. Mara looked toward the spreadsheet glowing on Lydia's old computer. My dad sold medical equipment. Later. He never mentioned this? No? Did he act here? Calvin's mustache lifted. Once. What was he? A corpse. Mara waited. He was excellent. Never missed a cue. She laughed before she could prevent it. The sound felt wrong in the office, not because it was unwelcome, but because her father had been dead 2 years and still managed to surprise her through a man holding a broom. Calvin's expression softened. Why did they stop speaking? She asked. He looked toward the open door. Ask the people who were in the room. They're dead. Then be careful with anyone who tells you they know. Mara closed the ledger. That is a very elegant way to avoid answering. I was not there for the final argument. I know Lydia's version, and I knew Tom's pride. Neither is enough. Did she ever ask about me? Constantly. But she never called. Calvin glanced at the metal filing cabinets, not for lack of trying. Mara followed his gaze. Before she could ask, the office phone rang. It was an old beige desk phone that Mara had assumed was disconnected. The sound made both of them jump. Calvin answered it automatically. Vale Theater. He listened, then handed her the receiver. City Building Office. Mara pressed the phone to her ear. The inspector assigned to the exterior order spoke with the flat speed of someone delivering information for the 5th time that morning. The September deadline was firm. A temporary pedestrian barrier might buy an additional 30 days, but only if accompanied by a contractor's schedule and deposit. How much of a deposit? That's between you and the contractor. Is there any grant program? Not currently funded. Historic property assistance? The next application cycle begins in January. January was 5 months after the cornice intended to fall on someone. When Mara hung up, Calvin had left. The turkey sandwich remained on the desk. She ate half while entering repair estimates and called 3 masonry companies. One refused the job without seeing it. One could visit in 6 weeks. The third said someone might come Friday morning if she paid a consultation fee. Mara looked at the single dollar in her wallet. Can I send photographs first? The contractor agreed to look, not estimate. At 4, Grant texted. Offer expires Friday at noon. Mara turned the phone face down. Thursday morning, she woke to Bernice standing over the cot with a garment steamer. Mara screamed. Bernice screamed louder. What are you doing in here? Your door was open. You don't enter someone's room because the door is open. I called your name. I was asleep. That explains why you didn't answer. Steam hissed from the machine in Bernice's hand. She looked offended by the entire situation. How did you know I was here? Calvin? He told everyone? No. Simone did. Mara pulled the blanket up, though she was wearing the sweatshirt and leggings. Eli promised this wouldn't become a group conversation. It didn't. It became several private conversations. Bernice lifted Mara's blue dress from the back of the chair. The fabric was wrinkled, one side of the hem spotted with alley dirt. Simone said, You have an interview. I can clean it. With what? The downstairs sink and optimism? It's my dress. Yes, and it's losing the fight. Bernice held it up to the window. There's a dry cleaner 3 blocks away. I'll have it back by 9. My interview is at 10. Then stop arguing with the woman who owns a garment steamer. Mara checked the time. 7:15. I can pay you Friday, she said. You're collecting quite a Friday. Bernice's eyes flicked to the cot, then away. I have a coffee shop shift Saturday. Keep your money. Consider it an appraisal service. Of the dress, of you. Preliminary finding, difficult but salvageable. She left before Mara could refuse. The dress returned clean and pressed at 8:43. Bernice had also repaired a loose thread at the waist and sewn 2 tiny weights into the hem. For wind, she explained. My interview is indoors. You'll have to get there. Mara changed in room 3. The knocking pipe had started again. She put her hand on the wall and imagined her father lying awake, young and angry, listening to the same noise. At the staffing firm, 2 members of the finance team asked about reconciliations, vendor discrepancies, and a time she had identified an error others missed. Mara answered with examples from an internship and her part-time job. She made them laugh once. Neither looked at the clock. Then the finance director asked, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Mara thought of the cot, the condemned lobby. Grant's offer folded on Lydia's desk. "Somewhere I'm trusted with the real numbers," she said. "Not just entering them. Understanding what they mean and being useful before things become emergencies." The director nodded slowly. In the parking lot, Mara sat behind the wheel and allowed herself 30 seconds to believe it had gone well. Then she checked her email. Denise had forwarded a photograph of 3 envelopes addressed to Mara on the kitchen counter. "Please update your mailing address. I cannot be responsible for ongoing deliveries," Mara called. Denise answered on the 4th ring. "I'm working. You sent me an email, which did not require a call. I need those letters, then change your address. One is from the university. I'm not opening them. I didn't ask you to." Denise exhaled. "Grant told me about his offer?" $10,000 is generous, Mara. Did he also tell you he wants the building? He's trying to keep you from drowning in Lydia's mess. Dad lived there." Silence. Mara gripped the phone. "For 6 months. Lydia gave him a room and a job." "I know." The word struck harder than denial. "You knew? Your father was ashamed of that period. Why?" "That is not a parking lot conversation." "How do you know where I am?" "Because you only confront people from parked cars." Mara looked at the dashboard. Her father had often done the same, calling after he drove around the block to cool off. Why did he stop speaking to Lydia? "Ask your new friends." "They weren't there." "Neither were you." The line went quiet. "Come get your mail by 6, Denise said. "I'll leave it outside." The call ended. At 5:40, Mara found the envelopes in a grocery bag hanging from the mailbox. Denise's car sat in the driveway, but the curtains remained closed. Mara did not ring the bell. When she returned to the Vale, voices drifted from the stage. She entered ready to remind them that she had forbidden rehearsals, then stopped in the wings. The 7 actors were not rehearsing. Owen was on a ladder cleaning a vent. Tessa wiped armrests. Malcolm sorted programs into recycling boxes. Simone swept the aisle while Calvin held a dustpan. Bernice knelt at the edge of the stage with a needle between her lips, repairing a torn strip of curtain. Eli stood at the lighting board, testing switches one by one. No one had put on a costume. No one spoke lines. They were obeying her in the saddest possible way. Mara stayed in the shadows until Eli saw her. "How was the interview? None of your business." He nodded. "That well?" "I didn't say that." "You wore the good dress. It's my only dress." From the auditorium, Bernice called, "It's a very good dress." Mara walked onto the stage. "You can rehearse." The cleaning stopped. Calvin straightened slowly. "Is that a legal authorization?" "It's permission for tonight. You still have to help me inventory." Malcolm dropped a stack of programs onto a seat. "I have never loved accounting more." "You haven't done any accounting. I love it abstractly." They moved without discussion. Owen carried the ladder away. Eli brought up the center lights. Bernice disappeared into the wings and returned with a thin bundle of scripts. Mara sat in the front row. The actors took their places on stage, not facing her, but one another. Calvin opened a battered script. On its cover, someone had written, "The Rooms Above." Eli remained at the lighting board. "Where's the final scene?" Mara asked. No one answered. Bernice held her script against her chest. Calvin looked at Simone, then at Mara. "We don't perform that one," he said. "Why?" Eli brought the stage lights down until only the white work light remained. "Because that's the promise," he said. Mara looked from Eli to the actors. "What promise?" Calvin closed his script. After the lobby ceiling came down, Lydia said we could keep meeting here if Owen declared the stage safe. "I declared the stage safe," Owen said. "You declared a section of the stage safe. I marked the soft spot, with a black X on a black floor. It was the paint I had." Simone lifted a hand. "The promise, gentlemen." Calvin nodded. Lydia didn't want us pretending the closure was temporary. She said if we performed the entire play without an audience, we'd turn the Vale into a mausoleum. "So, you cut the ending." "We preserved it," Bernice said. Mara stared at her. "By not doing it?" "Yes. That is not how preserving a play works. It has worked for 8 years. What does this have to do with me?" Calvin held the script against his chest. Lydia made us promise the final scene would be performed only when the veil reopened, with you sitting in her seat. Mara laughed, but no one joined her. You agreed to that? Lydia was frightening in a crisis, Tessa said. She could not have known I'd come. No, Simone said. She hoped. She didn't speak to me for 13 years. The silence returned, waited now. Mara stood. Which seat? Eli pointed to the center of the 6th row. One chair had a small brass plate fixed to its back. The engraving was too far away to read. Of course she had a seat. She had several, Malcolm said. That one had the best sound and the fewest drafts. Mara walked up the aisle until she reached it. The plate read, Lydia Vale, Artistic Director. Someone had polished it recently. She wrote this play? Mara asked. Most of it, Calvin said. Malcolm helped. I helped by being ignored in very specific places. The rooms above was supposed to open the fall after the collapse, Simone said. We were 2 weeks into rehearsal. What is it about? A boarding house, Bernice said. The owner dies and leaves it to a woman who thinks she has inherited a burden. Mara turned. Malcolm looked faintly embarrassed. The resemblance was less aggressive before this week. Did Lydia know she was leaving me the theater when she wrote it? No, Simone said. She wrote the first version years before. Then why me? Why did the ending depend on me? The actors looked at one another. Eli answered from the lighting board. Because there was a part for you. Mara's skin prickled. I'm not an actor. You were, Calvin said. I was 16. I carried a tray in one scene. You carried it very naturally. I dropped 4 glasses. They were sugar glass. One cut Malcolm. Malcolm raised a finger, emotionally. A summer returned in fragments. Mara sitting in the wings with a script open on her knees. Lydia shouting notes from the 6th row. Her father watching one rehearsal, laughing when Mara missed her entrance, then leaving before they finished. Denise waiting in the parking lot with the engine running. It had been Mara's final summer at the Vale. Calvin opened his script and flipped near the back. Lydia rewrote June for you. Who is June? The woman who inherits the house. Mara stepped away from Lydia's seat. This is manipulative. Yes, Eli said. Bernice frowned at him. It is also loving. It can be both. Lydia didn't know me, Mara said. Eli's eyes stayed on hers across the auditorium. She knew the version she remembered. The honesty hurt less than reassurance would have. Mara sat in the aisle seat, 2 rows behind Lydia's. You said I could rehearse, Calvin reminded her. I'm reconsidering. You may reconsider during Act 1. They began before she could stop them. There were no costumes or scenery. Owen moved 2 chairs and a small table into the center light. Bernice placed an empty teacup on the table. Malcolm stood in the aisle with his script rolled beneath one arm, calling adjustments nobody had requested. The play opened with Calvin, as the boarding house caretaker, discovering that the owner had died in her sleep while a pie burned in the kitchen. You smell that? He asked Simone. Simone, playing a tenant who worked nights at a hospital, did not look up from a stack of imaginary mail. I smelled it before you decided it was information. The kitchen is smoking. The kitchen always smokes. The pie is on fire. Then the pie is improved. Mara smiled despite herself. Calvin missed a line 3 pages later. He covered by opening a cupboard that did not exist and muttering about cinnamon. The others waited without rescuing him. After a moment, the line returned. The room changed as they worked. Tessa, stiff and blunt while cleaning seats, became a nervous restaurant owner who talked too much whenever anyone asked how she was. Bernice's voice lowered until every word seemed expensive. Malcolm played 3 minor roles with no attempt to disguise the fact. Simone did almost nothing and somehow pulled the entire scene toward her. They were good. Not polished, not young, not uniformly good, but alive in a way the building had not seemed alive when Mara was counting doors and cracks. Eli shifted the light as the imaginary day changed. Amber moved across the floor. The bare stage became late afternoon. Mara watched for 43 minutes. When Calvin reached the final page of the 2nd act, he closed the script. That's it? That's where we stop, he said. What happens next? No one answered. You're trying to make me curious. Is it working? Malcolm asked. No. Then we are simply terrible people. The actors packed quickly. Simone had another hospital shift. Tessa needed to close the restaurant. Bernice carried the scripts into wardrobe and locked them in a cabinet. Mara found Eli wrapping cable behind the lighting board. You said Lydia was manipulative. I said the promise was. You stayed anyway. So did she. That doesn't answer the question. Eli looped the cable over his arm. I was 23 when the lobby came down. Lydia had just hired me full-time. First job I'd had that didn't treat lighting like extension cords and luck. And then it closed. 11 weeks later. Why didn't you leave? I did. She waited. I toured for 2 years. Concerts, corporate events, a dance company that spent more on fog fluid than food. That sounds successful. It was loud. What brought you back? His hands slowed on the cable. My mother got sick. Mara immediately regretted asking, which irritated her because he had not made her ask. I'm sorry. She died 3 years ago. Still, he agreed. He placed the cable in a cabinet. Lydia let me stay in room 2 while I cared for her. I picked up local work. Then Lydia got sick. So you stayed again? I'm very good at leaving in circles. From the stage, Simone called his name. Eli locked the cabinet. You should turn the work light off before you sleep. I did the first night. No, you unplugged it. Different thing. It was on again in the morning. I plugged it in when I came for coffee. You were inside before the tow truck? I entered through the loading door. You were snoring upstairs. I do not snore. The building carries sound. He walked away before she could ask how loudly. Mara spent Friday morning at the coffee shop, working an extra shift Tasha claimed had appeared through divine intervention and a man named Eric quitting by text. At 11, Tasha placed her phone beside the register. Grant stood frozen on the screen in front of a digital rendering of 3 brick buildings with glass storefronts. A caption announced Ellison Market Row, coming soon. Mara enlarged the image. The veil was not shown. In its place ran a landscape pedestrian path leading from the street to a rear parking area. When did he post this? 2 weeks ago, before Lydia died. Tasha nodded. Your brother's either psychic or generous with the word soon. Mara scrolled through Grant's captions. He had options on 2 neighboring properties and a letter of intent with a restaurant group. His project needed delivery access, parking, and a walkway wide enough to meet the commercial layout he advertised. The Vales Alley and rear service lane sat in the middle of all 3. At 11:46, Grant entered Lydia's office and checked his watch. You have 14 minutes. Mara turned her laptop toward him. His rendering filled the screen. He stopped smiling. You planned this before I inherited. I planned a concept with my theater missing. Lydia refused every conversation. So you waited for her to die? That's not fair. Neither is calling $10,000 charity when you need the land. Grant closed the office door behind him. I don't need it. It makes the plan cleaner. How much cleaner? Mara, what is rear access worth to you? He removed his jacket and draped it over a chair. You've owned a distressed building for 4 days. Don't turn this into something you're equipped to negotiate because you took 1 valuation class. I took 2. Then you know the cost of curing defects matters. I also know assemblage matters. For the first time, Grant looked at her as if she were not merely in trouble. He pulled out the folding chair and sat. Fine, the lane has value. So, does avoiding demolition costs, structural liability, and months of permit work? I'm taking all of that. For $10,000, for 12. You had 14 minutes and gained $2,000. I'm trying to help you. Stop saying that. Grant's mouth tightened. What do you want? Mara thought of the contractor who had looked at Owen's photographs that morning and guessed $20,000 to $26,000 for the cornice. She thought of her credit card, the impound receipt, the interview she might not get. I want an independent valuation and time to understand the property. You don't have time. I have more than 14 minutes. Grant stood and collected his jacket. The offer is 12 until 5. After that, I start working around you. Then work around me. He paused at the door. You're letting strangers turn Lydia's obsession into yours. They're not strangers to the building. They're strangers to you. Mara looked at the offer in his hand. So are you lately? Grant left without the paper. The sentence did not feel victorious after he was gone. It felt expensive. Mara returned to the filing cabinets. If she was going to sell, she would sell with accurate numbers and no one's hand pressed between her shoulder blades. The bottom drawer stuck again. She pulled until it released with a shriek. Behind the production files sat a shoebox tied with blue cord. Inside were envelopes addressed to Thomas Ellison at Denise's house. Some bore holiday stamps. Some were thick. Others contained only a single folded page. Everyone had been returned unopened. Mara counted 37. The oldest was postmarked 13 years earlier. The newest had been mailed 6 months before her father died. On the front, in Lydia's sharp handwriting, were 4 words. For Tom. About Mara. Please. Mara opened the oldest letter. Tom, I am not writing to continue the argument. I am writing because I behave badly in your house, and behaving badly while being correct about one thing does not make the behavior disappear. You did not lie about the loan. You said you would repay me when the distributorship began paying you. It failed. Those facts are unpleasant, but they are not moral failures. Calling you reckless in front of Denise was cruel. Saying you would always need someone to rescue you was worse. You have built a life I do not understand, because you did not build it the way I would have. That is my limitation, not yours. Mara's costume is still here. She left one silver shoe beneath the rack. Tell her June keeps both shoes in the new draft. Please answer. Lydia Mara read it twice. The silver shoes had pinched. Bernice had stuffed the toes with cotton, and Mara had removed one between scenes, then forgotten where she put it. Her father teased her all the way home about Cinderella leaving footwear all over town. The memory had always ended in laughter. Now it continued into a house Mara could barely remember, an argument she had slept through or been sent away from, and 13 years of silence. She opened another envelope. Lydia had written about a storm damaging the roof. Calvin's retirement dinner, a diner that served the kind of apple pie Thomas liked. She asked if Mara still played the piano. She enclosed 2 tickets to a production that had closed more than a decade ago. The next letter was only 4 lines. Tom, I called the business office. The balance is forgiven. There is nothing to repay and no condition attached. I should have said that in person, but you will not let me near enough to say anything in person. L. A later one contained a joke about a dentist, a recipe Lydia admitted she had stolen from Denise, and an apology for sending too many apologies. The letters became less defensive as the years passed. Lydia stopped arguing her case. She wrote ordinary updates as if normality could be rebuilt one envelope at a time. Mara is graduating from high school this year, unless my math has failed. Please tell her I remember. Mara is 20. That seems unlikely. I saw a photograph of her on the university website. Accounting. Tom, you must be unbearable with pride. The 36th envelope had been mailed after Lydia learned of his illness. Tom, Calvin saw Grant at the pharmacy and heard enough to frighten me. I will not arrive uninvited. I will not ask you to settle anything. If you want me to sit quietly in a hospital chair and say nothing, I can do that. I understand you may doubt my ability to say nothing. I have improved. Please. The final letter had no stamp. It had never been mailed. Tom, Denise called and told me you died. Mara stopped reading. The office had darkened around her. She had not noticed the sun leaving the high windows or the shadows of the file cabinet stretching across the floor. The stage door opened somewhere beyond the corridor. Mara, Owen called. She put the letter face down. His footsteps approached, then stopped before he entered. Power's off in the costume room, he said. Breaker tripped. Fix it. All right. He left without seeing the box, or pretended not to. Mara gathered the envelopes into the order Lydia had kept them. The blue cord would not tie properly. Her hands shook each time she tried, so she carried the open box to her car. Denise's porch light came on before Mara reached the front step. The door opened 6 inches. I wasn't expecting you, Denise said. I found letters. That building is full of paper. Letters from Lydia to Dad. The door opened another inch, then stopped. Mara held up the shoebox. Denise's face did not show surprise. You knew. I knew, she wrote. Did Dad? Yes. Did he read them? I don't know. They were returned unopened. Then, apparently not. Mara stepped closer. Did you send them back? Denise looked past her toward the sedan. Come inside. The neighbors don't need a performance. I inherited a theater. They might enjoy one. Denise gave her a tired look and moved aside. The house smelled like lemon polish, and the candle Denise burned after cooking. Nothing had changed since Saturday except the empty spot beside the garage where Mara's bags had been. Grant sat at the kitchen island with his laptop open. The Mustang keys lay beside his phone. He looked at the shoebox. What's that? None of your business. Good evening to you, too. Mara set the box on the counter. Denise remained standing. Did you return Lydia's letters? Some of them. All? No. Your father took care of his own mail. He was sick when the last ones came. He was still capable of making decisions. The letter says you called Lydia when he died. I did. You had her number. Your father had been dead 3 hours. I called everyone in his address book. But you never called before that. No. Grant closed his laptop. What exactly are you accusing her of? I'm asking why everyone let me believe Lydia wanted nothing to do with us. Denise folded her arms. Lydia did want something. She always wanted something. An apology, a conversation on her terms, your father admitting she had been right about his life. She forgave the loan. After making sure he knew he'd failed, she apologized. She apologized beautifully. Lydia was very good with words after the damage was done. Mara opened the first letter and slid it across the counter. Denise did not touch it. What happened? Mara asked. You read it. I read her version. You've decided that's the true one. I came here for yours. Denise's eyes moved to Grant, then back. Your father lost his sales job when the company restructured. Grant was finishing college. You had just started spending summers at the theater. Tom wanted to buy into a medical supply distributorship with a man he knew from work. Lydia loaned him money, $40,000. Mara had expected less. The business failed. The partner left. Tom kept it going another year and lost more. Lydia never demanded a payment, but every conversation became an audit. Had he updated his resume? Was he cutting expenses? Why did Grant still have a car? Why were you taking piano lessons if money was tight? Grant's jaw shifted. She had opinions about everything, Denise said. Then she came here one night and told Tom he was behaving exactly as he had at 20. He told her to leave. She said that if he refused to grow up, someone would always have to rescue him. Mara looked down at Lydia's apology. She said it in front of me, Denise continued, in front of Grant. You were asleep upstairs. I thought Dad paid for my piano lessons. He did. We paid our bills. That was the point Lydia never understood. We struggled, and then we recovered. So Dad cut her off. Your father chose not to be spoken to like a failed project. And you supported him. Yes. You sent letters back. When he asked me to. What about when I turned 18? She could have contacted me. Denise's expression hardened. Yes. She could have. The simple agreement hurt. She knew where I went to school. Yes. She could have called me directly. Yes. Then why didn't she? You'll have to ask your new version of her. Mara stared. Denise reached for the box, then changed her mind. I did not steal your aunt from you, she said. Your father was not a helpless man whose mail I controlled. Lydia was not waiting outside with open arms while I locked the door. They were proud, difficult adults who loved each other and preferred 13 years of misery to one conversation neither could control. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because you were not the rope in their tug of war. No, I was just the thing left on the ground when they let go. Grant stood. That's dramatic. Mara turned on him. You threw my clothes into trash bags during graduation dinner. Denise packed them. The kitchen went silent. Grant looked at his mother. What? You did. Denise's face went pale with anger. Mara let out a breath that almost became a laugh. Grant opened his laptop again. You said she knew. I said she understood the arrangement. You changed the locks, Mara said. Denise pressed 2 fingers to her forehead. We are not combining these arguments. They combine themselves. I gave you 4 years. Dad gave me a home. He left that home to me. You couldn't wait 1 week. You had months to plan. I thought I lived here. The words came out smaller than the others. Denise looked toward the breakfast table. The champagne stain still floated above it. For one moment, her anger loosened. Then she said, And now you own a building. Mara picked up the box. Grant followed her into the hall. My offer's expired. I know. I can still make something work if you stop treating this as revenge. You replaced the theater in your rendering before Lydia died, because she would never sell. And you thought I would. He lowered his voice. I thought you'd be practical. Mara opened the front door. Maybe I am. She drove back to the Vale with the windows down, because the car smelled of hot plastic and old clothes. The box rode on the passenger seat. At a red light, the top envelope shifted onto the floor, and Mara had to pull over to retrieve it. She reached the theater after 9. Eli sat on the loading dock, eating noodles from a white carton. A tool case rested beside him. He looked at the box, but did not ask. "Did you know about the letters?" Mara said. "Some." "How much is some?" "I mailed 3 while Lydia was in treatment. They came back." "I know. Why didn't she contact me directly?" Eli set down the carton. "She said your father had asked her to stay away from you. I was an adult. I told her that." "What did she say?" "That she had already done enough damage." Mara laughed sharply. "So instead, she left me a condemned building and instructed 7 people to wait for me like I was the ending of a play." "Yes." "You all thought that was normal?" "No. But you agreed." Eli looked out into the alley. "She was dying. That doesn't make everything she did kind." "No. You keep agreeing with me. You keep being right about the worst parts." Mara placed the box beside him. "I found out my father lived upstairs. Lydia helped him. Then she humiliated him. Then he punished her for 13 years and let me think she had forgotten me. Then she decided respecting his wishes mattered more than asking what I wanted." Eli moved his noodles out of the way before her hand struck them. "And Denise packed my things," Mara continued. "Grant didn't even do that himself. Apparently he only wrote the note. I'm sorry. I don't need everyone to be sorry. What do you need? I need one person in this building to stop turning every answer into a feeling." He considered that. "The main roof is sound," he said. "The lobby needs work. The stage can operate. The theater has no cash reserves. The exterior deadline is real. Grant's 12,000 was low because the access lane has value to his project." Mara looked at him. "Better?" "Yes." "What are you going to do?" "Sell it." His face did not change. "Not to Grant. Not for 12,000. I'll clean it, document the usable systems, get proper estimates, and put it on the market as a property someone can actually evaluate. All right, you don't get to tell me Lydia wanted something else. I won't. The cast can meet if they help. No free performances about legacy while I do all the work. I'll tell them." Eli nodded. The next morning, all 7 arrived before 8. No one pleaded. No one offered a speech. Owen brought contractor bags and respirators. Bernice brought labels. Tessa carried a clipboard and a box of breakfast burritos. Simone set a first aid kit on Lydia's desk. Malcolm complained about the hour while unloading cleaning supplies. Calvin rolled in a shop vacuum held together with silver tape. Mara stood on stage with her spreadsheet printed in sections. "We have 3 weeks," she said. "Every room gets inventoried. Everything unsafe gets marked. Nothing leaves without being logged. I want operating costs, repair costs, and a list of what can function now." Calvin raised his hand. "Adjectives are allowed," Mara said. He lowered it, disappointed. Eli took the first task sheet. 3 weeks to make the theater easier to sell. No one said otherwise. Then Owen opened the lobby access door, and the veil breathed dust into the light. Dust filled the ruined lobby so completely that Mara could taste it through the respirator. Owen went first, testing each section of floor before allowing anyone else through. The fallen plaster had already been pushed into piles years ago, but damp had fused parts of it to the carpet. Water stains climbed the walls. One brass light fixture hung by its wiring above the concession counter. Calvin looked around and said, "It's improved." Mara adjusted her mask. "Since what?" "The collapse." "There was a motorcycle in here," Owen explained. "Why?" "No one found out. They worked in teams." Owen and Eli handled anything overhead. Simone and Tessa sorted debris from items that could be cleaned. Malcolm photographed every wall, door, and cracked tile. Bernice was placed in charge of deciding which fabric items could be saved, a responsibility she treated with the severity of emergency medicine. Calvin ran the shop vacuum. Every 4 minutes, it stopped. Every 4 minutes, Calvin struck the side with his palm and said, "Union break's over." By noon, they had cleared a path from the front doors to the auditorium. Sunlight entered the lobby for the first time in years, revealing more damage and less mystery. The plaster was plaster. The ruined carpet was carpet. What had looked like rot in the attorney's photographs was mostly old adhesive and dirt. Mara added 3 columns to her spreadsheet. Discard, repair, clean. "Where's priceless?" Calvin asked. "Between discard and clean." He nodded solemnly. "As it so often is." The veil resisted order in small ways. Labels fell from damp boxes. Keys opened doors on the opposite side of the building from where they were found. A crate marked glass contained rubber chickens. A crate marked rubber chickens contained glass. Mara created a numbered map of the storage rooms. Eli moved 2 numbers when she was not looking. She found him in the basement changing the label on B4. That's props overflow. This is electrical storage. The electrical storage is across the hall. That's where Lydia put it. It isn't where electricity wants to live. Electricity has preferences, strong ones. She took the label from his hand and stuck it back on the door. The map matches the existing files. The existing files call the loading dock the scene portal. Then the map will preserve Lydia's strange decisions. Eli reached around her, peeled off the label, and placed it on the opposite door. The building has enough of those. Mara moved it back. He looked at her. She looked at him. Owen came down the stairs, saw them standing inches apart with the label between them, and retreated without a word. "Fine," Mara said. "Electrical gets B-4. Eli smiled. It was the first full smile she had seen from him. It altered his whole face, removing years she had assumed were permanent. "You could have just asked," she said. "I did. You gave a lecture about electricity's emotions." It worked. By the 4th day, Mara had learned the theater's sounds. The boiler coughed twice before starting. The pipes above room 3 knocked when someone used the dressing room sink. The balcony door dragged in dry weather and swelled shut when it rained. A click beneath the stage meant the dehumidifier had stopped again. 3 sharp pops from the lighting booth meant Eli was testing old circuits. Not that the building was on fire. She also learned the cast's habits. Simone arrived late from hospital shifts and stayed after everyone else left. Tessa brought restaurant leftovers in black takeout containers with labels no one obeyed. Bernice hid anything she believed Mara might price. Malcolm sang when lifting and stopped the instant someone noticed. Owen kept every screw he removed, including stripped ones, because metal doesn't become trash merely by disappointing you. Calvin forgot where he set things, but remembered every production date since 1989. On the 2nd Thursday, he lost the same line twice during rehearsal. Malcolm said nothing. Simone repeated her preceding line with a different emphasis, offering him a path back. Calvin found it and continued. Afterward, Mara saw him alone in the front row, studying the page. "You changed the wording," she said. "Lydia changed it." "When?" "Frequently. This copy says revised 2018. "Yes." "So, it hasn't changed in 8 years. Calvin closed the script. Then I changed. He smiled, but the mustache did not participate. Mara sat 2 seats away. "My father was good with numbers," she said. "He was. I never knew that. Parents are allowed a few private skills. He wasn't private. He taught me everything he knew. Then perhaps he taught you without including the footnotes." Calvin tucked the script inside his sweater, as if it were confidential. "Do you ever forget things off stage?" Mara asked. "Only when people ask me questions I dislike. I'm serious." "So am I." He stood with more effort than he pretended and patted her shoulder once. "Do not diagnose an actor from a missed line. We survive by turning mistakes into choices." The following Monday, the finance director called. Mara carried the phone into the costume room because Eli was testing sound in the auditorium. She stood between racks of gowns while the woman thanked her for her time. They had selected a candidate with more corporate experience. Mara pressed her thumb into the edge of a plastic hanger. "I understand. The team was impressed with you. We'll keep your resume on file. Thank you. If another position opens, I'd be glad to hear from you." The call ended politely. Everything bad in offices ended politely. Mara remained between the costumes until her phone screen went dark. A feathered hat leaned against her shoulder. Someone had attached a tag that read, "Widow, Mary, not grieving." The stage speakers emitted a sudden burst of static. Eli shouted from the auditorium, "Not fire! I know." He appeared in the costume room doorway carrying a small black speaker. "What happened?" "Nothing. You sounded disappointed when you said it. I'm practicing range." He noticed her phone. "Job?" "They went with someone else." "I'm sorry." Mara pushed past him. "Don't. I'm not turning it into a feeling." "Good. I'm turning it into their mistake." She stopped in the corridor. "That was worse. I realized halfway through, At the coffee shop the next morning, Tasha listened while wiping the same section of counter 6 times. "My cousin supplies this place," she said. "I don't need coffee beans. You need employment. He needs someone who can explain why his accounts payable folder looks like a ransom note." Mara glanced toward the manager's office. "Tasha, what? You told your cousin I'm homeless?" "I told my cousin you're an accountant. I'm not an accountant yet. You have the expensive receipt." An hour later, a man named Luis Ortega sat across from Mara at a corner table with 3 bulging folders. He ran a food service company that delivered coffee, paper goods, cooking oil, and bulk ingredients to diners throughout the county. "My bookkeeper quit," he said. "Why?" "She said my filing system was an insult." Mara opened the first folder. Vendor invoices were mixed with delivery slips, sticky notes, and a takeout menu. She was right. Luis leaned back. "Tasha said you were direct. Tasha means difficult." She said that too. It was temporary work, 25 hours a week, mostly evenings. The pay was less than the corporate position, but more than the coffee shop. Mara would reconcile invoices, organize accounts payable, and prepare the files for Luis's outside accountant. "When can you start?" he asked. Mara looked at the theater dust beneath her fingernails. "Today." Luis's office occupied a mezzanine above a warehouse that smelled of coffee, cardboard, and onions. Mara worked there until 9, then returned to the Vale with her laptop and a container of rice Tessa had labeled, "Mara, this means you." The theater was dark, except for the work light. Eli sat on the edge of the stage repairing a cable. "How was the ransom note?" "Profitable." "You got the job?" "Temporary." "That wasn't the question." "Yes." He tapped the stage beside him. Mara sat, leaving a careful foot between them. The auditorium had been cleaned enough that the first 6 rows no longer looked gray. Malcolm's photographs were arranged in folders. Tessa had compiled utility records. Owen's repair list contained 23 items marked immediate and 41 marked eventually. Mara had added a 4th category, before sale. "I found a used parts buyer for the old projection equipment," she said. "He'll pay $800. Eli kept working on the cable. That equipment hasn't run since 2009. "I know. Sell it." She looked at him. "No argument. It doesn't serve the stage. It takes space. Sell it." "You're being reasonable. I'm trying something new." The cast had surprised her that way. They protected the theater, but not blindly. Bernice agreed to donate water-damaged costumes for textile recycling once Mara promised she could remove the buttons. Owen dismantled broken platforms rather than insisting every board had a future. Calvin suggested selling a set of antique lobby lamps because their wiring was dangerous and someone might restore them properly. They were helping her make the building easier to leave. Mara had expected pleading. Their cooperation created a quieter pressure. Eli tied off the repaired cable. "Owen says the upstairs office lock is finished." "I know. You're still sleeping in room 3. The cot is adequate. The office has a real door, a desk, and a window that opens. So room 3 has a pipe that wakes the dead. My father managed 6 months. He hated it, so I've heard." Eli set the cable aside. "You don't have to prove anything to a man who isn't here." Mara stood. That sounded like a feeling. It slipped. She left him on stage. Upstairs, room 3 contained the same narrow cot, the same bowl, and 6 black trash bags she had finally carried in from the sedan after midnight. They occupied one wall like sealed evidence. Across the hall, the office door stood open. Owen had replaced the damaged latch and polished the old brass lock. Inside, someone had moved in a small bed from another room. The desk had been cleared. Clean curtains covered the window, sewn from deep blue fabric with tiny gold stars. Mara touched the hem. Bernice's stitches were almost invisible. On the desk sat her father's framed photograph. She had left it wrapped in a sweatshirt inside one of the bags. Beside it was a note in Calvin's handwriting. "Room 3 has suffered enough Ellisons." Mara should have been angry that they had unpacked something without permission. Instead, she carried the remaining bags across the hall one by one. No one came upstairs to help. No one called it moving in. When she turned the key in the repaired lock, the click sounded small, ordinary, and entirely hers. The repaired lock did not make the office legal housing. Mara knew that every time she woke beneath the blue curtains. She knew it when she folded her clothes into Lydia's empty file boxes. when she brushed her teeth in the downstairs bathroom, and when she kept the bed out of every photograph of the building. Knowing did not make the room less hers. She developed a schedule that would have looked absurd on paper if she had left any space to judge it. Coffee shop on Saturday and Sunday mornings. Luis's warehouse Monday through Friday afternoons and 3 evenings. Theater work before, after, and between. Breakfast came from Tessa's containers. Clean towels appeared every Tuesday, though Simone denied running a towel service. Mara paid her $41 and received the bills back inside a sympathy card that read, "Sorry for your loss." Beneath it, Simone had written, "You lost an argument." Mara paid her again by hiding the money in her hospital tote. Simone returned it in Mara's shoe. The veil became cleaner by measurable degrees. The projection equipment sold for $800. A collector bought the dangerous lobby lamps for $450 and promised Bernice he would not gut them into farmhouse nonsense. Scrap metal brought $213. Mara used the money for insurance and the temporary barrier required by the city. The barrier was ugly orange mesh on weighted metal feet. Calvin attached a handwritten sign that said, "Pardon our reality." Mara took it down. Someone put it back each morning. Owen's masonry contact agreed to reserve a crew if Mara could produce a $5,000 deposit. She could not. The 3-week sale preparation deadline passed with the files organized, the building documented, and no listing contract signed. Mara changed the heading on her spreadsheet from "Before Sale" to "Next." She told herself it was shorter. An engineer named Paula Chen arrived on a Wednesday carrying a tablet and wearing white sneakers that stayed inexplicably clean. Owen followed her through the building with the respectful anxiety of a man awaiting judgment on his own spine. Mara had hired Paula for a limited structural review using the remainder of the equipment sale money. If the stage and auditorium could safely hold people, they would be more valuable than empty square footage. Paula inspected the roof framing, tested moisture levels, studied Owen's repairs, and climbed into spaces Mara had assumed contained only spiders and regret. "The auditorium structure is sound," she said at last. Calvin, waiting nearby, whispered, "Adjective." Mara ignored him. "What about occupancy?" "Not through that lobby. We could use the loading entrance." "For workers, yes. For a public event, no. You need compliant exits, emergency lighting, accessible passage, and a protected route that doesn't take people beneath damaged plaster. How many people could we bring in?" Paula considered the question. "For construction or maintenance, a controlled crew, not an audience. Even a small one? I wouldn't sign off on it." The actors had drifted into the auditorium while she spoke. No one reacted loudly. Bernice looked toward Lydia's 6th-row seat. Calvin rubbed the brass plate with his thumb. "How much to reach public occupancy?" Mara asked. "If Owen's estimates on the lobby are accurate, 40 to 50,000. More if electrical work expands." Mara had expected the number. Hearing it aloud still made her chest tighten. Paula closed her tablet. "The good news is the damage is localized. This isn't a failing structure. It's a functioning backstage and auditorium trapped behind an unsafe entrance. That's an interesting definition of good news. I'm an engineer. We have our own scale." After Paula left, the cast remained scattered among the seats. Malcolm stood in the center aisle. "We could perform without an audience." "We already do," Calvin said. "I mean properly. Lights, sound, full staging. Stream it." Mara looked up from Paula's written summary. "No?" Tessa leaned over a seat back. "You didn't even ask what it costs." "It costs something. My restaurant streams music nights. We own 2 cameras. 2 restaurant cameras do not make a television production." "No," Eli said from the booth. "But 2 cameras, 3 borrowed units, a switcher, and someone who knows what he's doing can make a good live stream. Do you know someone who knows what he's doing?" "I know someone arrogant enough to answer yes." Mara glanced up at him. Malcolm came down the aisle. "We have the play. Lydia wrote it, so rights aren't an issue." "Lydia and I wrote it," Malcolm added. "Mostly Lydia, but my name is small and legally useful." "Costumes are here," Bernice said. "Set pieces too," Owen said. Mara held up one hand. "Why would anyone pay to watch a play they have never heard of, performed inside a theater they can't enter?" The silence lasted too long. Calvin sat down. "Because they used to care about us." "Used to" is doing the work in that sentence. "We had subscribers," Tessa said. 8 years ago. People remember. Remembering is not buying a ticket. Eli left the booth and descended the stairs. It doesn't have to be a ticket, he said. Free stream, donations for repairs. So, a fundraiser, yes. Built around a play whose ending you refused to perform. No one answered. Mara gathered Paula's report and walked toward the office. Simone caught up in the corridor. You're angry at the wrong idea. I'm not angry. You're carrying that report like you want to cut someone with it. It costs $600 to learn a condemned lobby is condemned. You learned the rest of the building isn't. The public still can't use it. People can watch from somewhere else. Mara turned. You all want this because you miss performing here. That's understandable. It isn't a business plan. No, Simone said. It's a beginning. I cannot pay a contractor with beginnings. She entered Lydia's office and shut the door. On the desk waited a stack of archived subscriber lists Malcolm had found. Mara moved them aside, and a page slipped to the floor. It was a printout from the university website. Her own face stared up at her beneath a headline about graduating accounting students. The page had been printed 2 months earlier. Someone had circled her name in blue ink and written, "She looks like Tom when she's trying not to smile." Mara knew the handwriting, Lydia's. On the back, in darker ink, someone had written an email address and a phone number. E. Mercer. Mara opened the office door. Eli stood on stage with Tessa, examining camera positions. She held up the page. What is this? He saw it and went still. The others quieted. Mara crossed the auditorium. Why is your name on the back? Eli looked at Simone. Don't look at her. I found the article. When? April. You knew where I was. I knew where you went to school. You had my email address. Yes. And my phone number. Yes. The word echoed. Mara's hand tightened on the printout. Did Lydia ask you to contact me? She asked me to find you. That's not what I asked. No, she did not ask me to contact you. Did you offer? Yes. Mara waited. She said no. And that was enough for you? Eli's face closed in the way she had learned meant he was trying not to answer too quickly. She was in hospice by then. She didn't want a stranger calling you to say your aunt was dying and you should come repair a relationship you didn't break. She let an attorney call after she died and tell me I owned a ruin. I argued with her about that, but not enough. No. The honesty no longer hurt less. You could have called me. I could have. You knew she was dying. You knew she had spent years writing letters. You knew she was leaving this place to me. I knew she intended to. I didn't know if the will had changed. That distinction is important to you? It was at the time. Mara looked around at the actors. Who else knew he found me? One by one, they raised their hands. Calvin's came up last. Mara laughed without humor. 7 adults decided I should find out when everything was already over. No, Eli said. 1 dying woman decided. 7 adults failed to stop her. Don't make that sound noble. I'm not. You all keep saying Lydia was impossible as if that excuse is obeying her. It doesn't. Then why did you? His voice lowered. Because she was frightened. Because she had spent years reaching toward your father and having every letter returned. Because I thought dragging you into her room to relieve her guilt would be another way of using you. You thought I was fine. Yes. You saw one graduation article. Yes. I was sleeping in my car 3 weeks later. I didn't know. You didn't ask. The sentence landed between them. Eli looked down. No, he said. I didn't. Mara left before anyone could follow. She drove to Luis's warehouse and reconciled vendor statements until every number matched. At 10, she returned to the theater through the loading door. The stage was dark. Eli's tool case was gone. So were the camera diagrams. No one had left food. On Lydia's desk, the university printout lay beside the archived subscriber lists. Mara turned on her laptop. The Veil had once maintained 612 season subscribers and another 2,400 names on its mailing list. Many addresses would be dead. Some people would have moved. Interest could not be assumed. She built a projection anyway. At $20 per online household, 100 viewers produced $2,000 before costs. 500 produced 10,000. Donations could increase it, or nobody could watch, and the cast would have spent weeks performing into cameras for a number on a screen. She added equipment rental, platform fees, advertising, insurance, and food. The numbers were not impossible. They were not good enough either. Near midnight, she opened the rooms above. A copy had been left beneath the subscriber lists. The first page listed the cast. June Vale, the inheriting woman, had a handwritten note beside it. For Mara, when she is ready. Mara flipped to the third act. The final pages were missing. Of course they were. She carried the script into the auditorium and sat in Lydia's seat. The brass plate pressed cold beneath her fingers. The work light made the stage look smaller than it did during rehearsal. Empty, not dead. Mara imagined 2 cameras near the center aisle, one in the balcony, one backstage. She imagined captions, payment links, staffing hours, a production schedule. She hated that her mind had already started arranging it. Her phone buzzed. A message from Eli appeared. I should have called. Nothing followed it. No explanation. No request to be forgiven. Mara typed 3 answers and erased them. Then she opened the group conversation Simone had created against her wishes. How many weeks would you need to perform the play? Malcolm answered before the message showed, as read by anyone else. With the final scene? Mara stared at the question. Without it, she typed. The typing bubbles appeared, vanished, and appeared again. Calvin replied, 4 weeks. Eli did not respond. Mara looked at the dark stage. 4 weeks, she wrote. Bring me a real production budget tomorrow. No adjectives, no promises, numbers. The production budget arrived in 7 incompatible formats. Tessa brought a spreadsheet. Owen wrote materials on the back of a lumber receipt. Bernice submitted 3 pages of costume notes and 1 total labeled Minimum Decency. Malcolm handed Mara a legal pad containing the words Artistic Contingencies and no number. Calvin brought donuts. Eli placed a printed estimate on Lydia's desk. Camera rentals, switcher, microphones, streaming platform, cabling, backup internet, and 2 people who know how to operate what we borrow. Mara scanned the total, $3,800, before advertising. We have $412 available after insurance. I know. You told me the equipment could be borrowed. Some can. The audio can't. Tessa has restaurant microphones. Tessa has 2 microphones designed for a man with a guitar, sitting 6 feet from a basket of chicken wings. They stream. They sound like a basket of chicken wings. Tessa took a donut. He's not wrong. Mara drew a line through the audio rental. Eli leaned over the desk. You can't cut the thing that allows people to hear the play. Then find it cheaper. How? You said you knew people. I know lighting people. They're suspicious of sound people. Why? Sound people. Malcolm nodded as if this settled an old matter. Mara circled the platform fee. Why aren't we using a free service? Because free services interrupt things, limit controls, and put their own branding on the image. Branding we don't have to pay for. We want donations. People should believe we understand what we're doing. We are performing a play without its final scene inside a theater no one can enter. Let's not overstate our understanding. The budget meeting lasted 3 hours. They cut rental days by rehearsing without cameras. Tessa's restaurant agreed to lend 2 wireless microphones for backstage interviews, though not for the play. Owen knew someone with a nearly new digital mixer. Eli convinced a former tour colleague to operate it for the cost of gas and dinner. Luis offered discounted coffee and paper goods after Mara fixed 3 years of vendor credits he had never claimed. The new total came to $2,140, still too high. Mara created advance reservations for the stream at $10, with an optional donation. No one would be charged until they reached a minimum audience large enough to cover production costs. What if we don't reach it? Bernice asked. Then we cancel. We will have rehearsed 4 weeks. Rehearsal doesn't become a debt the audience owes you. Bernice removed her red glasses. Do you enjoy making every sentence sound like a door closing? No. I enjoy doors that say whether they're open. Eli, seated against the filing cabinet, looked down at his hands. They reached the minimum 11 days later. Former subscribers forwarded the announcement. Tessa's restaurant posted rehearsal photographs. Luis included small cards with diner deliveries. Calvin called people from Lydia's old list until Mara discovered he had spent 4 hours speaking to a woman who did not own a computer. She sounded lonely, he said. She lives in Arizona. Loneliness has excellent range. Mara removed the long-distance calls from his assignment. The growing reservation count did not make rehearsal easier. Simone missed 2 evenings after the hospital changed her schedule. Malcolm stopped scenes to argue about pacing. Bernice wanted to restore a velvet jacket that shed green fibers whenever Calvin moved. Owen built a staircase 1 inch wider than the old plans allowed and insisted the plans were emotionally narrow. Mara kept a production board in the wings. Every task had a name, deadline, and colored status marker. Green meant complete. Yellow meant at risk. Red meant late. Within a week, Simone's name had 5 red marks beside it. She arrived after 10 one night, still in scrubs, and found Mara moving 2 of her costume changes to Tessa. "What is this?" Simone asked. "A schedule we can meet." "I can meet the existing schedule. You missed fittings. I work. So does everyone." The cast went quiet. Simone set her tote on a chair. "I had a patient deteriorate at the end of my shift." Mara heard the word patient and knew she had lost before she answered. "You could have texted. I was busy keeping a person alive. I'm not asking you to apologize for your job. I'm asking whether you can perform the role." Simone's face became very still. Lydia used to ask that question. Maybe she needed an answer. And maybe we needed her to ask whether the cost was destroying us. Simone walked into the dressing room and shut the door. Mara turned toward the others. Everyone suddenly found something urgent to do. Eli remained beside the production board. "You can say it," Mara told him. "You're managing volunteers like late invoices. They made commitments. So did you. That doesn't mean you stop being a person. I'm trying to keep this from failing. You're trying to make failure impossible by controlling everyone. That sounds like one of your feelings." "No. That sounds like Lydia." The comparison struck cleanly. Mara pulled Simone's red markers from the board, one at a time. "Get out." Eli did. The next morning, the production board lay face down on the stage. Simone's costume schedule was gone. Mara found her in the downstairs bathroom pinning her braid. "I was wrong," Mara said. Simone studied herself in the spotted mirror. "I need you to tell me what schedule you can keep," Mara continued. "Not the schedule Malcolm wants, not the one I want. 3 rehearsals a week. I can block 4 hours for the stream if I request the night off now. Done. And if the hospital calls me in for a true emergency, I go." "Done?" Simone inserted the final pin. That wasn't a very emotional apology. "I'm trying to meet you where you live." The corner of Simone's mouth moved. "It'll do?" Mara rebuilt the board around everyone's actual availability. Rehearsal took longer. Fewer tasks turned green. No one quit. Eli returned that evening without mentioning the order to get out. He found Mara in the lighting booth staring at a row of switches. "Number 6?" he asked. "It's humming. It likes attention. I'm not hitting it with a mallet, then it will never respect you." He stood behind her and reached past her shoulder. His hand covered hers on the fader. "Slow," he said. Mara moved it. Light warmed the empty stage below them. Too fast, and the old dimmers stutter. "Hold here." His voice was close to her ear. She became aware of the dust on his shirt, the clean soap smell beneath it, and the fact that neither of them had moved away. "Eli." "Yeah? You should have called." His hand left hers. "I know. I don't know if I forgive you. I know that too." She turned. The booth was narrow enough that her knee touched his. "Stop agreeing with me. I can try." He looked at her mouth. Mara looked away first. "Show me number 7. Number 7 is unpredictable. I'm noticing a theme." He smiled, but the distance returned. 3 days before the stream, Tasha sent Mara a link. Grant had posted photographs of the ruined lobby beneath a statement warning people to investigate before donating to unsafe venues. He did not name Mara. He did not need to. The Vale's damage marquee appeared in the first image. Another showed the fallen plaster and exposed wiring before cleanup. Comments accumulated beneath it. "Is this the place asking for money? Should anyone be inside?" Thought the city closed it. Mara called him from Lydia's office. "Take it down. I posted public information. You posted old photographs. Is the lobby repaired?" "You know it isn't." Then they're accurate. "The production isn't in the lobby. The average person doesn't understand that distinction. You're counting on that." Grant's voice cooled. "You're soliciting money for a building under an exterior order. We're selling access to an online performance from a structurally safe stage. You sound like a disclaimer. You sound like a man whose development plan has a theater in the way. I'm trying to keep this from becoming worse." "For whom?" He did not answer. A hard knock sounded at the stage door. Owen opened it. A city inspector entered with a clipboard and a fire official beside him. Mara knew before, either introduced himself. The inspector walked through the backstage area, checked exits, asked about extension cords, and reviewed Paula's report. His concern was not the controlled production crew. It was the upstairs rooms. "Is anyone residing in the building?" he asked. "No," Mara said. Eli looked at her. The inspector did too, Mara corrected herself. Temporarily. How temporarily? She could not find a number that helped. Upstairs the bed was made. Her clothes were in boxes beneath the window. Her toothbrush sat in a cup on the desk beside her father's photograph. The inspector did not humiliate her. That somehow made it worse. "This building is not approved for residential occupancy," he said. "No smoke detection in the sleeping rooms, no protected egress, no fire separation. You cannot stay here overnight. I'm the owner. That doesn't change the fire. Can I apply for an exception?" "Not for sleeping. You need to leave today." The fire official placed a red notice on the office door. Mara stared at it. "Who reported this?" "We don't disclose complainants." She did not need him to. The production could continue with a limited crew if the exits remained clear and no audience entered. The upstairs rooms could be used for storage and changing, not sleeping. The inspector explained all of it twice, respectfully, while Mara's life sat in 6 black bags beneath the blue curtains. When the officials left, the cast waited downstairs. No one asked what happened. Mara climbed to the office and began packing. Eli came to the doorway. "I can take the boxes. I don't need help." "Mara, this was the first door I could lock in a week." He looked at the red notice. "I know." "No, you don't." She pulled clothes from a file box and shoved them into a bag. "You all keep telling me this place is a home. Lydia let people sleep here. My father stayed here. You stayed here. Then the first time I treat it like one, I get a sign telling me I'm not allowed. That's not the theater rejecting you. It feels exactly the same." He picked up the box containing her father's photograph. Mara almost told him to put it down. Instead, she carried 2 bags downstairs. Grant arrived while they were loading the sedan. He parked beside the orange barrier and got out slowly, as if approaching an accident. "You reported me. I reported an unsafe use. You knew I was staying upstairs. I knew you were hiding it. You threw me out, then reported the place I landed." His face tightened. "I didn't throw you out. No, you wrote the note. Mara, if something happened in there, you'd be liable. You could die. So could anyone in a house without smoke detectors. You didn't post pictures of Denise's kitchen when the alarm battery died. This building is not a house." She looked at the black bags around Eli's feet. "No," she said. "Apparently it isn't." Grant glanced at the veil. "My offer still stands." 12,000? 15. Mara laughed. "Take it," he said. "Get an apartment. Stop sleeping in a condemned building and begging strangers to fund a play." Eli stepped forward. Mara lifted a hand before he could speak. "We reached our minimum," she told Grant. 382 households reserved. The stream happened Saturday. And then what? She had no answer. Grant nodded as if the silence belonged to him. Simone pulled up in her hatchback and opened the rear door. "My spare room," she said. "It's small, and the closet door only opens halfway." Mara looked at the bags. "I can find somewhere." "Yes. You found here. Now find my car." There was no gracious way to accept. Mara loaded her belongings into Simone's hatchback in front of Grant, the cast, and the red notice on her door. Simone's spare room held a narrow bed between a sewing machine and 2 stacks of nursing journals. The closet door opened 12 inches before hitting the bed frame. Mara had to climb over one bag to reach the window. Simone placed a towel on the bed. "Bathrooms across the hall. Coffee starts at 5. I don't talk until 6, thank you." "I know." After Simone went downstairs, Mara sat among the bags. Her phone showed 24 cancellations and twice as many new reservations from people angered by Grant's post. The total had risen to 417. Mara opened the production schedule. Saturday's rehearsal block began at 7. She changed Simone's call time to 9, moved costume checks to Tessa, and marked the task green. Then she sent one message to the group. "We perform Saturday. No audience. No one sleeps at the Vale. Every exit stays clear." Eli replied last. "I'll be there at 6. Mara typed, "Make it 7. After a moment, he answered, "I can try." At 6:12 Saturday morning, Eli was already hanging cable above the stage. Mara stood below him with her hands on her hips. You said 7. I said I could try. You failed. I've accepted it. The camera operator beside Tessa looked between them. Is this a workplace thing or a relationship thing? Workplace, Mara said. Building, Eli said at the same time. The operator nodded. Those are usually worse. By 8, the veil contained more equipment than it had seen since closing. Cables ran along the aisles beneath black safety mats. 2 cameras faced the stage. A third waited in the balcony. A borrowed unit on a wheeled tripod followed backstage movement for the short interviews Tessa had planned between acts. Mara checked every exit herself. No obstruction, no audience, no one upstairs except Bernice during costume changes. The red notice remained on the office door, visible each time Mara passed it. 471 households had reserved. 300 had completed payment. The others could join free and donate later. Mara had calculated 12 versions of the evening. In the worst, the stream failed before the first scene and refunds consumed their remaining cash. In the best, every reservation converted. Average donations reached $30, and the theater still could not afford the lobby. There was no version labeled Miracle. At 10, Calvin forgot the pie line. At 11, he forgot it again. Malcolm stopped rehearsal. Take 5. I don't need 5, Calvin said. Then take 4 and resent me during the 5th. The others scattered. Calvin remained beside the prop table, staring at the empty pie tin. Mara approached with her clipboard. Do you want a cue card backstage? No. Eli can place a monitor in the wing? No. You keep missing the same line. Yes, Mara, I have noticed. She lowered the clipboard. Calvin picked up the tin. The problem with memory is that everyone else becomes a customs officer. They stand around asking whether you packed your own name. I'm not asking that. Not yet. He turned the tin over in his hands. I know the scene. I know what the pie smells like. Lydia used cinnamon oil in rehearsal because the real thing made Simone hungry. It still does, Simone called from the dressing room. Calvin smiled faintly. I know where Tessa stands, when Malcolm coughs, how the light changes. The line is in there with all of it. Sometimes I reach and the shelf is empty. We can cut the line. No, we can change it. No. What do you want me to do? Trust me to fail in public? Mara looked at him. That's an unreasonable thing to ask the person with the refund spreadsheet. I know. She drew a green line through Q monitor. All right. Calvin placed the pie tin on the table. You may regret this. I regret most things in advance. It saves time. At noon, the hospital called Simone. Mara heard only Simone's side. How short? A pause. No, I understand. I'm asking how short. The costume room went silent. Simone listened, then looked toward the stage. I can be there in 40 minutes. Mara closed her eyes. Simone ended the call. They have 2 nurses out. The stream starts at 7. I requested the night. I know. I have to go. I know. Tessa was already reaching for Simone's script. I understudied the blocking, she said. Malcolm can take my role. Malcolm looked up. I can? No, Mara said. Everyone stopped. She faced Simone. What time can you be back? 6:30 if the next shift arrives on time. And if they don't? Then I tell them I cannot stay. Mara believed she meant it. Go, she said. Tessa rehearses your entrances. Malcolm, learn Tessa's role without reinventing it. I would never. You rewrote 6 lines yesterday. They were crowded. Simone squeezed Mara's shoulder as she passed. The production bent instead of breaking. That was the lesson Mara had been slowest to learn. Tessa could stand in Simone's place without replacing her. Malcolm could carry 2 scripts. Bernice could delay 1 costume change. The schedule was not a promise carved into the building. It was a way for people to find one another in the dark. At 4, Grant posted again. The statement was shorter this time. Please remember that emotional appeals do not repair unsafe structures. Mara read it in the lighting booth while Eli adjusted the balcony camera. Don't answer, he said. I wasn't going to. You opened the comment box. I like knowing where it is. He wants you defensive. He wants the rear lane. That too. Mara watched the old photographs move beneath Grant's post. He had selected the worst angles, the fallen plaster, the dangling fixture, the red warning on the front doors. He isn't wrong about one thing. Eli came down from the camera platform. Which thing? People think we're asking them to save a theater they can't see honestly. We posted the repair estimates. Numbers aren't the same as showing it. You want to stream from the lobby? I want to open there. For 5 minutes? Mara nodded. No one enters, he said. No one enters. You stay behind Owen's barrier. I stay behind the barrier. Helmet. Absolutely not. Then no. You don't own the building. Neither does falling plaster. It will still hit you. She wore the helmet. At 6:42, Simone ran through the loading door carrying her costume bag. Did anyone die? Malcolm asked. No. Then we're already ahead. Bernice dragged her toward the dressing room. The stream opened at 6:55 with a view of the ruined lobby. Mara stood behind Owen's wooden barrier, wearing the blue dress and a white hard hat. The contrast looked ridiculous on the monitor. She kept it. A red light came on above the camera. For 1 second, Mara forgot every sentence she had prepared. Then she looked at the hanging brass fixture and spoke. This is the part of the Vale Theater you've seen online. The photographs are real, so is the damage. The live viewer count rose along the edge of the monitor. We can't bring you through these doors tonight. We can't promise that one performance fixes a building that has been closed 8 years. The stage behind me is safe and working because people kept maintaining it when there was no audience, no paycheck, and no reason to believe anyone would come back. Her voice almost caught. She let the silence remain. We're not asking you to pretend the Vale is whole. We're asking you to watch what still works. Eli switched cameras. The image moved through the cleaned corridor into the auditorium, then opened onto the red curtain beneath warm light. The play began. Mara watched from a folding table in the wings, surrounded by 2 laptops, the payment dashboard, the production schedule, and a bowl of peppermints Calvin insisted were necessary for serious theater. The first laugh arrived in the live comments 40 seconds into Calvin's scene. More followed. Tessa's restaurant owner entered too early and covered it by pretending she had forgotten her coat. Malcolm, playing the coat rack delivery man, handed her an invisible garment. Simone crossed behind them in nurse's shoes, tiredness deepening the lines Lydia had written for her. They did not look like people pretending to live in a boarding house. They looked like people who knew what it cost to keep returning to one. Halfway through the first act, the stage lights flickered. 3 sharp pops came from the booth. Mara looked up. Not fire, Eli called. The stream image froze. The viewer count stopped at 603. In the auditorium, the lights went out except for the white work bulb. The actors held their positions. Mara ran to the electrical panel. Eli reached it at the same time. Circuit 6, he said. Coffee urn, audio rack, and stage wash. You put them on the same circuit? Temporary distribution changed the load. That sounded like a yes. He reset the breaker. It tripped immediately. Behind them, the audio operator called. We're still sending sound. 600 households could hear a dark theater. Mara remembered Owen complaining about the beverage line being moved. She traced the orange cable from the hall. Tessa plugged the urn into backstage power. I told her lobby circuit. There is no working lobby outlet. There's one near concessions. Under damaged plaster? Right. They unplugged the urn. Eli reset the breaker. The stage lights returned. The cameras rebooted. Mara saw the actors frozen in place. Calvin still holding the pie tin. Eli gave the cue. Calvin looked straight toward the nearest camera. As I was saying before the house objected, he said, "The pie is on fire." The comments exploded. Mara laughed so hard she had to mute her headset. By the second act, donations had passed $4,000. By the third, they reached 6. Then Calvin came to the line he had missed all day. He stood beside Simone on the imaginary boarding house stairs. The scene called for him to explain why he had remained after the owner's death. His mouth opened, nothing came. Mara's hand hovered over the cue button she had promised not to use. Simone waited. Calvin looked at the empty seats. His gaze settled on Lydia's brass plate. I stayed, he said slowly, because leaving a place isn't the same as being finished with it. It was not the written line. It was better. Simone answered with her next cue as if he had said it every night for years. Mara removed her hand from the button. The play reached the end of the second-to-last scene. The residents stood in the damaged boarding house, arguing about whether to sell, repair, or walk away. Bernice, as June, looked toward the room above. Then, what do we do tomorrow? She asked. The stage went dark. For a breath, there was only the white work light. Calvin stepped forward. There is one scene left, he said to the camera. We promised Lydia Vale we would not perform it until this theater reopened and Mara Ellison was here to see it. The backstage camera turned toward Mara. She had not agreed to that. Malcolm pointed urgently. Mara stepped into the light. The actors made room for her without touching her. The viewer count read 718. Mara looked into the camera. "I'm here," she said. "The theater isn't open yet." Calvin smiled. "Then we know what tomorrow is for." Eli faded the light. The stream ended. No applause came from the empty seats. Instead, the computers in the wings began chiming. Donations, messages, membership requests, former patrons asking whether they could volunteer, a local choir asking to rent the stage for a recording if closed productions were allowed, a podcast producer asking about weekday hours, a man who repaired plaster offering 2 Saturdays of labor. The total stopped at $8,712. After costs, fees, and refunds, it was enough for the masonry deposit and little more. Mara stared at the number. "It isn't 40,000, Bernice said. "No, it isn't even 10. "No, is that bad?" Mara looked at the cast gathered in sweat-stained costumes, at the cables crossing the clean aisles, at the stage that had held through darkness and improvisation. "No," she said, "it's proof." Eli stood beside the work light. "Of what?" Mara opened a new spreadsheet. "That people will pay for something this building can do now." By Monday, 163 viewers had joined the monthly membership Mara created, each choosing an amount they could sustain. The choir booked 2 recording days. Luis reserved the stage for a supplier presentation. Tessa proposed quarterly restaurant music streams. None of it solved the lobby. Together, it covered insurance, utilities, and a small maintenance fund. The masonry contractor called at 9:12. "I can hold the crew for 10 days, he said. "Do you have the deposit?" Mara looked at the payment account. "Yes." "And after the cornice?" She looked through Lydia's office window toward the dark auditorium. "The lobby," she said. "How are you paying for that?" Mara opened the membership projections, the rental calendar, and Owen's volunteer schedule. Slowly turned out to mean rain delays, 3 rejected flooring estimates, and a masonry crew that discovered 4 additional loose brackets behind the marquee. It meant Mara working at Luis's warehouse until 6, changing clothes in the Vale's downstairs bathroom, then spending evenings comparing fire door prices while Malcolm rehearsed 20 feet away. It meant Owen teaching volunteers how to remove damaged plaster without removing themselves. It meant Bernice cleaning red lobby curtains in sections because no machine in the county would accept them whole. The cornice was repaired before the first hard freeze. Calvin climbed onto the sidewalk after the barrier came down and placed both hands against the brick. "You should not touch fresh mortar," Owen told him. "I'm thanking it. It doesn't know you. That has never stopped me." The lobby took longer. Membership income covered utilities and insurance. Closed stage rentals paid for wiring. The choir's recording brought in another group, then a local jazz trio, then a company that needed a quiet place to film training videos. Mara built rates around actual costs. Friends received friendliness, not free electricity. Each month she published 1 page showing what came in, what went out, and what repair came next. People trusted the numbers because the numbers were often disappointing. The plaster volunteer from the stream donated 2 Saturdays, then returned for 6 more because Owen criticized his corners. Tessa organized restaurant nights, where a percentage of sales went toward the lobby floor. Simone persuaded hospital co-workers to join the membership, but refused to let Mara use the phrase hospital partnership until the hospital had actually agreed to anything. Eli accepted lighting jobs elsewhere, and brought the money back only when Mara invoiced him for stage use like everyone else. "You cannot donate your entire day rate," she told him. "I'm not. You kept $20. I bought lunch. That is not a financial plan. It was a large lunch." They had their first kiss behind the concession counter while arguing about whether his invoice included equipment storage. It was not elegant. Mara's elbow struck a stack of paper cups, and Eli laughed against her mouth while they rolled across the floor. Afterward, she picked up each cup. "This does not erase April," she said. "I know. It also does not mean I agree with you about Circuit 6. "Then what does it mean?" Mara handed him the final cup. "You're supposed to know when not to ask questions." He kissed her again. Luis made her bookkeeping position permanent in February. He did not give her an impressive title. He gave her health insurance, a raise, and authority to reject any filing system involving grocery bags. Mara reorganized purchasing, caught duplicate charges before they became arguments, and created a weekly cash report Luis initially called disturbingly clear. When she told him she needed Thursday evenings at the theater, he said, "I assumed everyone did." She rented a studio apartment above a laundromat. The bedroom barely fit the bed, and the kitchen faucet whistled, but the lease carried her name alone. On the first night, Mara stood inside the locked door waiting to feel safe. Instead, she missed the veil's pipes. Simone helped her move and complained that the studio had no space for the nursing journals Mara had not realized Simone expected her to take. "You said they were in my way," Mara said. "They became yours through proximity. That is not how ownership works." Simone looked at her. Mara sighed. Apparently, it sometimes is. Grant's project changed shape. His original restaurant group withdrew when construction access remained unresolved. He found another tenant and redesigned the walkway along the Vale's sidewall, losing parking spaces in several months. He referred to those losses as Mara's decision, until Mara reminded him he had designed a project around property he did not own. He came to the theater once during lobby construction. The brass fixtures had been rewired. The damaged carpet was gone. Volunteers were laying patterned tile based on an old photograph Bernice found in Lydia's files. Grant stood where the pedestrian path appeared in his original rendering. "I'll give you 45 for the rear lane," he said. "It's where our deliveries come in. You use it twice a week, then you don't need it badly enough." He looked around the lobby. "You've spent more than this place will ever return." "Not according to the operating statements. You're counting donations as revenue. I'm counting membership as recurring support. Because that's what it is. You always have an answer now. I had answers before. You weren't asking questions." Grant pushed his hands into his coat pockets. For a second he looked younger than Mara remembered, more like the man with the skateboard than the one with a rendering. "Denise wants to come to the opening." Mara continued sorting tile. "She can buy a ticket. She thinks you'll make some announcement about us." "What announcement? That we threw you out." "You did?" "She thinks you'll embarrass her." Mara set down a tile. "I have spent a year repairing a theater. I do not have rehearsal time for Denise's conscience." "So she can come? If she buys a ticket?" Grant nodded. At the door he stopped. "I shouldn't have reported you." "No, I thought if you couldn't stay here you'd sell." "I know." He waited, perhaps for forgiveness, perhaps for a sentence he could argue with. Mara gave him neither. "I kept the Mustang," he said. "Congratulations." Dad loved that car. It was Lydia's car. His expression shifted. That distinction, too, had spent years being erased. "Right," he said. "Lydia's." He left through the front doors. The final inspection occurred on a humid Tuesday. Mara did not invite the cast to wait, but all 7 appeared independently and pretended to have tasks in the auditorium. The lobby passed. So did the exits, emergency lighting, accessible route, fire alarms, and upstairs separation. The rooms above required a separate approval and operating agreement before anyone could sleep there. Mara had spent months building both. The Vale would not return to Lydia's informal system of folded blankets and good intentions. A local adult housing organization would screen referrals and provide case support. Stays would be short, expectations written, and emergency funds separate from theater operations. 2 rooms would open first, then a third only when the program could sustain it. Owen installed smoke detectors in every room and tested them until the cast threatened mutiny. Room 3 remained empty. Mara placed the blue-flowered bowl on its dresser and left the knocking pipe unfixed. Sentimental negligence, Eli called it. She called it a future tenant's problem. Opening night sold out in 31 minutes. The Vale's restored marquee displayed "The Rooms Above" in gold letters. Beneath it, Calvin added, "Final scene at last." Mara stood in the lobby wearing the blue dress Bernice had altered again. "You changed the waist," Mara said. "You changed the waist. People do that. Fabric does not. Fabric needs information." Patrons filled the lobby beneath repaired plaster and rewired brass lights. Some had attended the stream. Some had worked on the building. Others touched the walls and told one another where the old candy counter used to stand. Luis arrived wearing a tie the color of cooking oil. Tasha came with him and announced that the apartment Mara invented after graduation had developed remarkably. Denise entered alone. She wore a dark green dress and held one of the programs against her chest. Her eyes moved from the tile to the ceiling to the photographs arranged along the wall. "You kept Lydia's production pictures," she said. "They belong here." "Yes." They stood beside a photograph of Thomas Ellison behind the concession counter at 20, holding a broom like a guitar. Denise touched the frame. "I'd never seen that. Neither had I." "He hated that mustache." Mara looked closer. Her father's young face carried a thin, unfortunate line above his lip. "He should have." Denise smiled, then lost it. "I am sorry about the bags," she said. Mara waited. "I told myself I was enforcing an agreement. I was punishing you for not being worried enough about leaving. I didn't know I was supposed to leave." "I know." It was not enough to repair them. It was enough to stop pretending nothing had broken. An usher rang the lobby chime. Denise looked toward the auditorium. "Where am I sitting?" "Row 12. "Not with you?" "Lydia's seat is 1. Denise nodded once. "Of course." Grant slipped in just before the doors closed. He took the seat beside his mother without approaching Mara. Mara waited in the lobby until the audience settled. Then Eli appeared through the auditorium doors and held out his hand. "6th row," he said. "I know where it is." "I know." She took his hand anyway. The cast stood in place beneath the opening light. Calvin wore the restored green velvet coat, which no longer shed visibly. Simone had requested the night off 6 months earlier. Tessa's hands shook until her first line, then stopped. Malcolm played 3 roles and somehow made each costume change look intentional. Bernice, as June, entered the inherited boarding house, carrying a suitcase she could barely close. Mara sat in Lydia's seat. The play reached the line Calvin had changed during the stream. "I stayed," he said, "because leaving a place isn't the same as being finished with it." This time, it was written in every script. The third act continued beyond the place where the work light had ended the broadcast. June spent the final scene making no grand declaration. She repaired a broken table, while the residents argued about paint, rent, and who had misplaced the good hammer. One person announced he was leaving. Another asked to stay 1 more month. Nothing became easy. At last, the caretaker handed June a ring of keys. "What am I supposed to do with all these rooms?" she asked. Calvin looked toward Mara. "Stop deciding who deserves a door," he said. "Open one. See who knocks." Bernice crossed to the upstairs window built into Owen's set. She placed a lamp in it and switched it on. The stage went dark around that single square of light. Mara's applause began late because she could not make her hands move. The audience rose. When the cast returned for their second bow, Simone stepped down from the stage, took Mara by the wrist, and pulled her into the aisle. "I am not an actor," Mara protested. "No one's perfect. They brought her on stage." Under the lights, the repaired theater looked less polished than it had from Lydia's seat. Mara could see every brush mark, every patched curtain seam, every place where labor had refused to become invisible. Calvin handed her the keys from the final scene. Mara faced the audience. "The rooms above open Monday," she said. The applause surged, but she waited until it quieted. "They are not theater housing. They're short-term rooms for adults who suddenly have nowhere safe to land. There are rules, inspections, partners, and an actual budget, because apparently kindness needs paperwork if you want it to last." People laughed. Mara looked toward Denise and Grant, then back at the cast surrounding her. This theater was kept alive by people who made one promise before they knew whether keeping it would matter. "I can't promise the veil will solve every bad night. I can promise no one who enters here abandoned will be treated as disposable." Eli stood in the wings beside the white work light. Its bulb flickered once, then went dark. After the audience left, Mara found a replacement in the electrical cabinet. The cast waited on stage while she screwed it into place. The bulb warmed beneath her hand. This time, the light was not waiting for her. It was showing the way in.